The keys for healing are within you. You own them. You possess them. You have them. And that is incredibly important to remember with Chiron shifting into Taurus in 2026, where it will remain off and on until 2034, as this is the essence of Taurus energy. It's to have and to hold. It's to own and to possess. And with Chiron, this is a pain point. And so what this is signaling in terms of the season of time that we are walking through as a collective is that there's going to be a lot of pain points and a lot of triggers around ownership, around possessions, around, yes, finances is also a Taurus theme. But what is of the utmost importance for you to keep in mind is that healing is within. You own it, you have it. Because while we will talk through the various downsides of Chiron in Taurus, what we've seen with this transit in the past, it's important to know that you own the keys to your own healing. With Chiron in Taurus, there could be more corporations and more of society seeking to profit off of your pain points, off of your triggers, or even us seeking to fill some sort of void via more purchases, via a fix-it-all. And with Chiron in Taurus, it's important not to overlook the simple things as it relates to our own healing. Things such as nervous system regulation, things such as peace, things such as cultivating our own stability, even if we are going through a rocky time economically, societally. So within this video, we will be deep diving into Chiron in Taurus so that you feel supported on everything you need to know about this transit collectively and individually. We will look back in Chiron in Taurus throughout history and what themes came to the surface in order to make sense of what patterns are emerging with the next slice of time we're stepping into. We will talk about the wound that Chiron in Taurus triggers, but also the medicine that Chiron in Taurus offers. Because this is not me implying that we are stepping into a period of just continual pain around these Taurus themes, around the Taurus territory of your chart. While Chiron energy can be painful, there is wisdom that we are able to gain from the wounds and medicine that we are able to tap into. We will also talk about what it means if you have Chiron in Taurus within your natal chart. You are stepping into your Chiron return. So you are getting a review of all of these Chiron in Taurus themes within your life, the story that it writes within your natal chart, and if you have really healed those wounds. Then we will take it into our individual Chiron in Taurus forecast. We will talk about how you can find where Chiron in Taurus will transit within your chart, which signs will be most affected by this transit. And then we'll take it into our Chiron in Taurus all houses, all signs reading so that you can dial into what wounds Chiron in Taurus is exposing, yes, but also the medicine that it is granting you based on your unique natal chart. And I feel so honored as a Chironian myself to be delivering these forecasts for you. This all sign forecast has its home on my channel, Hey, the Comet Astrology, where you can dial into where these transits are activating in your chart, but also how it is that you can co-create with them. One thing that you will never find on my channel is fear-mongering, is doom and gloom. Absolutely, Chiron in Taurus has a shadow side, and that we will absolutely bring to the surface, but it also has a medicinal quality. And so with this forecast, as well as any other forecast that you will find on my channel, I always seek to empower you to co-create with the astrology. That's how you make your life more magical. And I also do that within my weekly horoscope show. It's called Magic Monday. It's available here as well as in podcast form. So if my style speaks to you, just know I have all sorts of cosmic content here and other places all around the World Wide Web. And if you wouldn't mind, this video is a labor of love. I love doing this, sitting in my cosmic corner of the internet, letting you know what the sky above you is reflecting within your life, within your journey, making you feel seen. It is a massive time investment on my part. So if you wouldn't mind, if you gain any value from this video, if you wouldn't mind liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, tagging a friend, letting people know that this transit is happening, any little bit of engagement that you are able to give is so appreciated from me. It really helps out the channel, and I am just so incredibly grateful. But without further ado, we have a lot to discuss, so let's go ahead and take it into Chiron in Taurus, the history. As we step into the unknown, astrology presents us a guide of how to recognize the patterns of what may play out due to what has surfaced last time we experienced this transit. Now, no one transit is 100% the reflection of anything. Everything is happening in conjunction with the other planets and the other interactions. And it's important for me to say, while the historical events that we will talk about are absolutely aligned with the themes of Chiron in Taurus, and similar ones may surface in the stretch of time that we are stepping into now, I want to continually remind you that we as humanity are here to evolve. We are here to do better than those who came before. It's important to see how it is that we can interact with these transits as powerfully as possible, knowing that we do not exist in a replay of what transpired last time. We have this opportunity to interact with these themes in a different way and to evolve as humanity because of that. And that caveat was important for me to add because you'll see some of the patterns may raise some eyebrows. For example, Chiron was in Taurus from 1926 to 1934, which is timed with the lead up as well as the rise of the Great Depression, which was a time of immense financial insecurity, food insecurity, and the trauma from that continued on beyond that particular point in time. As we'll talk about within Chiron in Taurus, the wound, Chiron in Taurus can bring up a lot around what it is that we own, what it is that we possess, the dollars that we have within our bank account, the food that we have to serve on the dinner table. And during the Great Depression, resources were scarce, possessions were scarce. It really was a time of individuals having to fight for survival. And many of us on this planet have been raised by people who were raised by people who went through the Great Depression, or your grandparents' parents were alive during the Great Depression. And a lot of that food insecurity continued on generationally. I mean, so many individuals from this time, even if they were not alive during it, being raised by people who were, those people being raised by people that were, oftentimes led to certain survival tactics, feeling like you had to hoard cash because it wasn't safe at the banks, or having to stockpile resources, having to hoard food. It was a time that resources were so scarce that resourcefulness was incredibly important. In fact, resourcefulness was survival. And so a lot of people who were raised by individuals who went through the Great Depression, or their family was, even if they aren't in survival mode, they're still in survival mode. That's how damaging it is to go through a period where there is such mass starvation and such scarce resources that even when the circumstances have changed, it embeds within your system this deep sense of not being safe, where even if times were different and there were more abundant resources, there was still this mentality due to traumatic circumstances embedded within the generation where they had to hold on to everything. And it gave way to a lot of hoarding tendencies, pack rat tendencies, squirreling away money in unusual places, as well as not feeling safe to not finish a meal. Like if it's on your plate, you need to finish it because who knows when you're going to eat again. So you need to stuff everything down, or sometimes holding on to leftovers many days out because you can't waste food. You can't waste resources. This generation was embedded with this frugality. And so a lot of the pain of that time due to challenging economic times, as well as part of Chiron in Taurus, of course, was timed with the Dust Bowl, a lot around land, a lot around food. It was a time of massive desperation around resources, around money, around food, as well as it damaged individuals' worthiness altogether, especially for people who saw themselves as a provider. I've got to provide, I've got to show up for my family. Being unable to find work, it does create a wound around, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing what it is that I am here to do. And so Chiron in Taurus, at least how it showed up in the late 20s, early 30s was a time of very trying economic times, scarce resources, crops being ruined, farms going through challenging times. And it makes for a really fascinating juxtaposition when we walk through time to look at the next Chiron in Taurus transit, which was on and off between 1976 and 1984. Now, granted, times economically during that time were not necessarily all fabulous. This time period in the UK, there was the Winter of Discontent, which were widespread strikes of individuals resisting the cap on their essentially raises. Over 5.4 million working days were lost due to people striking and standing up for their worth and their value that they provided to these sort of companies and resisting their pay being capped. It was being capped in order to combat inflation, but essentially the workers at this time fought back. And we see that with Chiron in Taurus, there can be a lot around essentially labor strikes. But again, with Chiron in Taurus, sometimes it does bring about that wound around, I want to stand for my values. This is not fair. We are worth more than this. But sometimes in order to put food on the table, I have to cross the picket line. I have to be a scab. Like, it also brings up that the discuss with ourselves around, oh, I'm not living in alignment with my values. I want to stand firm in this. But ultimately, we have these bodies. We need to eat. And the sad reality of the world that we live in is that companies, corporations know that, especially in times that are scarce economically, it takes a lot of willpower to stand up for ourselves and our fellow workers in order to get paid adequately, especially if it is something that is ongoing or over a certain amount of time. Some people cannot financially afford to continue to strike, though I would always encourage to do so if there is some sort of strike during Chiron in Taurus, recognizing how powerful we are when we're working together. That's co-signed by Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius. But back to this time period. So times were not necessarily economically perfect over this time. The beginning slice of Chiron in Taurus, we were essentially responding to the oil crisis, the oil embargo of this time. There was stagflation at this time. Sounding familiar when I'm recording this in 2026. So interesting how the patterns reflect. But as we get into the later years of Chiron's journey through Taurus in the 80s, a much different economic mindset emerges at this time, and a vast difference than what we experienced last time Chiron was in Taurus, early 20s, late 30s, where at this time it started to become more and more commonplace to own things. The 80s, particularly the beginning part of the 80s, were a time in which it was all of a sudden very important to have ownership over all of these electronics that were on the market. Things like fax machines, Walkmans, VCRs, microwaves. These electronics exploded in popularity, and it started to be more and more commonplace for them to be in every home. Taurus brings up a lot around ownership. And the past we talked about in the late 20s, early 30s, there was a major focus on ownership and possession for the purpose of surviving. Like, I need food because I need to survive. I need cash because I need to survive. And now it's sort of shifted into this more so have or have not sort of mentality, not around things that we needed, like food, sustenance, resources, all of that, but more so around the extras. A lot of people will associate 80s with a time of rampant consumerism and materialism around more and more people seeking to keep up with the Joneses, where you don't want to be the only home on your block where you don't have a VCR player. It's all about the VCR these days. There all of a sudden was this major focus on owning it. And I wanted to read this quote from this article. It says, personal computers. Who would have ever thought 40 years ago or 30 or 20 years ago that people would need one in their home, Rosinger said. The same is true for such products as the video cassette recorder, the cellular telephone, the photocopier, the fax machine, pagers, amongst other things that were very popular at this time. And I pulled that quote because Taurus brings up a lot around ownership. Mine. And a lot of things where they used to be available, yes, but you didn't have to have it in your home, were all of a sudden more important to have your own. And when we think of other trends that we saw in the early 80s, things like fitness, VCR tapes. It's like, I'm working out within my own home. This is my tape. There was a major focus on ownership and even a certain identity associated with making lots of money and having nice things. Because this reveals the other wound of Chiron in Taurus. It could be the wound of, I don't have what I need. I am not safe. I am not stable, as we witnessed within the Great Depression. But within this later point in time, again, I'm not saying the economy was perfect, but people had more spending power than they had had before. And companies and corporations were marketing in order to benefit from that. This energy of more. Because that's the thing about Chiron, it's never satisfied. You know, when we talked about the trauma of those who went through the Great Depression and other economically trying times, I'm not just looking at that. When you go through a period like that where what you need is not available, even when you walk through time and it is available, you don't forget that fear of not having enough. It stays with you, where no matter how much cash you have stockpiled that you can see, no matter how much food you have in the pantry, there's still this feeling around it's not enough. Taurus energy brings about our security, feeling like I have enough, I am abundant. And that showed up in a different way in the early 80s around, it wasn't so much stockpiling cash, but more so it's not enough. I need the fancy vehicles. I need the clothes that communicate that I am this business person. The style of the time was a little bit more ostentatious. The vibe was a little bit more decadent, and it's never enough. That's the key with Chiron in Taurus, is that it never feels to be enough. Which is why I wanted to open our video today by saying it is within you. With Chiron in Taurus, it's going to be really important to have the keys to your own security, stability, enoughness to make yourself feel safe, even if circumstances are turbulent, and trying to make yourself feel satiated and satisfied, even when so many advertisements are wanting you to buy more and consume more. To find that from within is going to be key. Because in this time period, you know, food went from something that is necessary for survival to something that was a bit more demonized. When we think about what was transpiring in the early 80s, suddenly there's more conversation around things being fat-free. Now keep in mind, when Chiron in Taurus passed in the late 20s, early 30s, it's all about sustenance. It's all around staying alive. It's around having the food available so that you can fuel your body. Now the conversation is shifting in 80s around food being a little bit more of the enemy. Things need to be fat-free. We start to see more and more diet culture prevalent at this time. Saw Weight Watcher dinners and lean cuisine meals. Because keep in mind, now the microwave is more and more popular. Now food is not just around sustenance. It's also around maintaining a certain look. It's not just around what will fuel your body, but what will fuel your physique to a very aesthetic sense. And that's going to be important when we talk about Chiron in Taurus, the wound around food altogether, and themes that may surface with this pass. There are certain words or phrases that even encapsulate the spirit that was alive during the 80s. And again, anecdotally, everybody has their own experience of it, but there was a phrase around greed is good. I believe it's from a film, but there was an energy due to Reagan economics, due to other components of the time, where there was more of a focus around making as much as possible and spending more. And a lot of the data reflects that. This time period saw the rise of yuppies, young urban professionals, which were individuals who were college educated and concerned around accumulating wealth, essentially. Surveys of this time reported that this particular yuppie demographic was more concerned with making money and acquiring more consumer goods than their parents or their grandparents were. So suddenly, it's not enough to just have your needs met. Suddenly, you need to make as much as possible, and you need to own as much as possible. You need to consume as much as possible. And that keeps us in the trap around it's never enough, around being trapped by a certain lifestyle, or I'm making this much and now I want to make this much, and this never ending loop that, again, a lot of corporations benefit from. Like now we're seeing a different sort of financial insecurity where it's not so much so around these are trying times, like literally I'm not sure where my next meal is going to come from, which was dominant during the last pass of Chiron in Taurus. Now it's more so my needs are met, but I want more. I'm insecure with my financial position until I get to the next thing. It brings about a different emphasis of that. And Marketing Intelligence Service claims that more than 112 new items reached the shelves for supermarkets and drugstores during this time, including new sizes and flavors of existing products. So suddenly there's more of an abundance of options that are hitting the market at this particular time. And as we talked about, more and more people were concerned around making as much money as possible, owning as much as possible. And because of that, more and more of life being concerned with working and acquiring money and flashy items and what have you. And this is not me implying that everybody was living the high life and seeking to make as much as possible. Of course, there's a wide spectrum of how everybody experienced this particular transit. And as I noted, it's not that economic times were flawless. Absolutely. Like in late 70s, there was stagflation, individuals recovering from the oil embargo. I found it fascinating that the national speed limit was lowered to 55 miles per hour in response to that. Taurus energy, you know, it's around slowing things down, but the underlying insecurity around there's not enough fuel, there's not enough. That is what we see with Chiron in Taurus, this energy around it's not enough, whether it is literal, whether it is psychological, this deep wound around not feeling satiated, not feeling full, not feeling satisfied. The cosmos is essentially a giant mirror, and Chiron in Taurus is reflecting back the collective pain that we are all carrying living under capitalism in its stage that it is currently. Because Chiron in Taurus is this wound that is around the have and the have-nots, around I want A, B, and C, but due to my financial status, I am not able to. It is so deeply infuriating to live on a planet that is so abundant, but to experience such scarcity while others profit off of others' exploitations. Like Chiron in Taurus can be us all feeling the weight of that around the current economy that we are navigating and the pain around it, where it's not even necessarily, oh, I want all of these flashy things. Like a lot of people just want to survive. They just want food. They just want free time. They just want fresh air. And the pain around, I can't do what I want to do. I can't live how I want to live because I have to keep making money. Like financial traps around, I have to keep working. I have to keep earning in order to just survive, in order to keep things afloat, or even just the pain around, I used to be able to afford more, or I used to feel like I was able to save, but now due to inflation or other factors, I just feel like I can't get ahead. There also can be a wound around ownership at this time. Less and less individuals feeling like they own things. Again, sometimes Chiron shows up in excess around, we've got to own it all, mine energy, right? Or it could show up around, I don't really own everything. You know, within this modern day and age, there's a lot around subscriptions and what is it that we really own? We don't own a lot of physical media anymore. We don't own a lot of things. It's all renting. It's all subscription. And so Chiron and Taurus can also be pinging at the insecurity of not really owning what it is that you have access to. And that is both an uncomfortable reality to live with, as well as a deep wound emotionally and psychologically, because Chiron energy can bring that to the surface around, what is wrong with me? You know, Chiron and Taurus can bring a lot around worthiness and value. So feeling unworthy because of your earning potential or how much you are bringing in, or feeling not valuable due to this particular time, and just the pain that we carry around this flawed system that we are living in. And while that can be a real part of Chiron and Taurus, just feeling that like lingering burning around, it shouldn't be this way on this planet where there is such beautiful nature and such abundance of resources. Why is it this way? This is not right. This goes against nature. This goes against biology. Because when we think about Taurus, we think about the natural world. We think about our physical bodies and how so much of the times that we're living in now has us going against the rhythms of our physical body. You know, Taurus energy is around rest. And a lot of individuals feel denied rest at this particular time because they have to keep the machine going or keep working or keep earning, what have you. Or even just how certain systems are designed that go against our own biology, that go against our own rhythms, where no matter what is happening within your body, you got to keep going, you got to keep earning, or no matter what part of your cycle that you're on, you got to go to this office in temperatures that are colder than what really goes with your biology, because that is the standard. Like things that are just against how we were wired. When we go against the natural world for so long, when we're not out in nature, when we are not feeling the sunlight on our skin, when we're not giving ourselves ample time to rest, like at a certain point, our body will rebel. Our body will fight against it. With Chiron and Taurus, we may see more individuals navigating burnout at this time, especially if they've been operating against their design, pushing their body to extremes in order to continue to earn money, or in some cases, in order to continue to spend and to consume. And a lot of times our body gets our attention somehow, some way. And Taurus energy also deals with food. And so during this time period, we may see more and more come out around our food supply, more recalls, more just evidence and data around how our food is poisoning us, and just the massive amount of effort that we have to do in this day and age in order to just not get poisoned, in order to just not be exposed to microplastics and horrible things that are in our foods. Like, it can be exhausting and it can be incredibly fatiguing at this time, just trying to keep our bodies sustained in a way where we are not damaging ourselves. With Chiron and Taurus, we may see damage as it relates to certain land, as it relates to certain crops, or like I said, just more information coming out around how there's more pesticides, more this, more that. And while those are real concerns, the inverse is also bad. And I want to bring that to the surface, because Chiron in Taurus can reflect a period of time that we're going into where food is seen as an enemy of sorts. And I think we're already seeing some of the lead up of this. And I just want to say to each and every person, it is so incredibly important that your body is sustained, that your body is nourished. You must fuel your body. I just want to emphasize that, because either out of fear around, oh, well, what can I eat? Or just diet culture and the beauty standard that is just pushed upon us. With Chiron and Taurus, there can be more of a movement around seeing food and pleasure as the enemy, something to be denied, something to be repressed. Because while with Chiron and Taurus, there can be a major focus around how food can be poison, I do genuinely believe there will be themes that come about around how food can be medicine. We'll talk about that with Chiron and Taurus. And it's important how we consume food, because Taurus is around, as I highlighted, rest and enjoyment and pleasure. And with Chiron and Taurus, this absolutely can be digging at a wound around, I feel like I don't have time to enjoy my life. I feel like I don't have time to go slow, to enjoy the simple things. I have to keep working. I have to keep earning, whatever it is. Chiron and Taurus can also be bringing about this energy of not having pleasure within our life, or denying ourselves of any particular pleasure, seeing food as something that is the enemy, and choosing to curb hunger pains in ways that deny your body the sustenance that it so craves. Like, absolutely, there's a lot of really unhealthy eating habits as it relates to excess that may come to the surface with Chiron and Taurus, but also undereating is very damaging to your body. And I just want to emphasize that now, because when it comes to the collective pain that we share as humanity, we're all connected. And also, these are themes that can be passed down. They can be inherited, like we talked about with the Great Depression, and individuals who are raised by those who go through the Great Depression sometimes also take on certain patterns around hoarding and holding on to everything and forcing themselves to eat everything, even if they're full, because they don't know when their next meal is going to come. That absolutely can be damaging to pass on. But a lot of people who are alive at this time either navigated the 80s or are raised by individuals who navigated the 80s, which, as we talked about, was a time that Chiron was last in Taurus. And this was a time where there was such an emphasis upon being thin. There started to be genuinely such a fear around fat, with fat-free and low-fat foods. And that also damaged a lot of the generations who came after. You know, a lot of times when it comes to EDs, those are things that are inherited, because we see how our caretakers feed themselves. We look at how they look at themselves, and a lot of times we internalize those particular eating habits. And I bring this to the surface because absolutely this can be a pain point that is brought to the surface now, but we are here to evolve as society. We are here to do better than those who came before. And so I am hoping that we do not live in a loop around what was rampant last time Chiron was in Taurus, and really start to see food as fuel and food as a friend. It's not an enemy, because I think with Chiron in Taurus, it's seeing food that way. And granted, I do think that there is a lot of mindfulness that needs to be exercised around eating, but the answer to that is not around doing things that curb appetite and not eating at all. Food sustains you, it nourishes you, it keeps you going. And these are patterns that are modeled to the next generations. And so everyone who's watching this video, let's all strive to do better, because I think so many of us, I mean, I grew up in the Tumblr age where there was a lot of pro ED content, and I am genuinely hoping that we can shift, because with Chiron in Taurus, like I said, the core underlying wound is it's never enough. I'm never thin enough, or I am not able to eat enough. Like, this operates on a spectrum, whether it's like excess of eating, gorging ourselves on anything that we find, or depriving ourselves. Ultimately, it's never enough, because the void that we are seeking to fill is bigger than what we are striving to fill it with. Whether it's the deprivation or whether it's the excess, it's bigger than this. And so with Chiron in Taurus, while there can be wounds brought to the surface around food altogether, it is my hope that we can also view food as medicine, as well as pleasure as medicine, because the wound of Chiron in Taurus is not finding pleasure in anything, not finding enjoyment in anything. Taurus is a sign that speaks to simple joys, simple pleasures. And while I think it's important to be mindful of what we put in our body, it's also important to be mindful of the thoughts that we consume. If we indulge in something and then tell ourselves that we're the worst, that is damaging for our body. Like, if you eat a salad and you're beating yourself up because you put dressing that was more caloric than you wanted it to be, that is going to be more unhealthy than if you eat a cupcake and you genuinely enjoy that cupcake. Like, pleasure and joy can be healing, and it doesn't need to show up in the big ways. It can show up in the little ways as well. And my concern with Chiron in Taurus is that more and more individuals are going to experience anhedonia, which the definition is the reduced ability to experience pleasure or a total loss of interest in activities once enjoyed, often described as feeling numb or meh. Because ultimately, Taurus wants to feel comfortable, it wants to feel secure, it wants to feel pleasure. And with Chiron in Taurus, whether it's because of having to make so much money, or because food isn't the same as how it was, or whatever it is, it could just be this energy around nothing gives me pleasure anymore. Whether I feel like I don't have time to do the things that I enjoy because so much of my energy is around making money and buying things, or for some, just around survival, or I won't let myself enjoy this cupcake because mentally I feel like this is a bad food, and food is not something to be enjoyed. Food is to be something that is consumed as minimally as possible. Whatever it is, it could just represent a time in which we feel a little numb. and disconnected from our pleasure, even like very simple pleasures. You know, when I think of Taurus, I think of cuddling. I think of napping. I think of resting. And with Chiron in Taurus, it could be reflecting a time in which even if we are resting, we're not really in the energy around feeling safe, around feeling secure. And when it comes to treating ourselves or enjoying things, it's poisoning that experience, whether it's guilt or shame around the consumption, feeling like it is something bad. Now, absolutely, Chiron in Taurus can go on the other end as well. Excess hedonism, absolutely. Acquiring more and more to get a better hit. Hoarding more and more stuff, consuming more and more in order to fill something. But really, there can just be a wound around pleasure, whether it's my entire life is around pleasure, yet nothing does it for me anymore, or it's energy around my life doesn't feel like it is conducive for pleasure, or I have not created a life in which that regularly occurs. Chiron in Taurus, the medicine. Chiron is not just where it is that we are wounded. It's where we have the capacity to heal. And with Chiron in Taurus, while there can be wounds and pain points around these Taurian themes of security, stability, pleasure, being satisfied, there can also be healing potential around these themes. So starting with money, starting with resources altogether. When it comes to what we witnessed in the late 20s, early 30s, there were not enough resources. When it comes to what we witnessed in late 70s, early 80s, there were suddenly so much more resources that there was more of a societal expectation to go and spend. And what we're being asked to navigate in now, late 20s of this millennium, and early 30s is how it is that we can own what it is that we possess and not have what it is that we possess own us. Because absolutely, this can be a time in which resources are more scarce. And I don't say that to fearmonger. I don't say that to panic. What's going to be important when times are tough, when things are scarce, to chisel resourcefulness, really take care of what it is that we own while still cultivating our own inner sense of security, our own inner sense of stability. Because like we were talking about earlier, you know, it's not just what we eat, it's also the thoughts that we consume. It's not just what we have, but also the energetic, where it doesn't matter if we have tons of stuff stockpiled in the pantry or we're ready for anything to transpire. That doesn't matter if we're constantly living in fear regardless, where it doesn't feel to be enough. Absolutely. Be wise, be resourceful. If you have a little more money at the end of every grocery trip, it may not hurt to have some things within the pantry, but you've got to cultivate that inner sense of abundance, that inner sense of being satisfied. Even if there's an energy around, I feel like I don't have enough rice to make it through this particular time period, it's going to be important to cultivate safety within your body. Because with Chiron in Taurus, there just could be an energy where even if our physical needs are met, the looming fear of them not being met also creates harm on our physical vessels. And even if times are not that tough where the economic concerns are around security, being very mindful where it is that you're being marketed a fix-it-all, or buy this, your problems will go away. Buy this, this will fix everything. Chiron and Taurus asks us to simplify our lives down to what it is that we really value. And there's so many different trends and fads that say, this is what you need in your life, and you'll be happy once you do this. You'll be happy once you look like this. Buy this, and you'll feel like this about yourself. You'll feel more worthy. Chiron and Taurus can ping at our self-worth issues. I'll feel worthy once I'm making this amount of money. I'll feel worthy once I'm keeping up with the Joneses. It's never enough. And so you've got to cultivate that abundance within, where I don't need everything that's being marketed to me in order to feel good about myself. The medicine of Chiron and Taurus is widening your worthiness beyond your ability to make an income or make money. It's not a surprise that Chiron and Taurus oftentimes coincides with trying economic times, as it is a pain point of society and what we're moving through. The economy is constantly shifting. And so it's important with Chiron and Taurus that you do not hinge your own personal value as a human being to what the markets are doing or how much you have within your bank account. It's important to widen your worth and your own sense of value, and potentially building a life around what it is that you value. That can be healing. This is personal and anecdotal, but when I was working in a position that I was not fulfilled by, I bought a lot more. I ate a lot more. It really amplified how much I consumed, because it's almost like I had to spend money in order to prove to myself that it was worth it. Like the long hours that I was working, the hard hours that I was working, I would just obsess about my next meal because then it was a distraction to the work that I was doing. And once I shifted into making a living in something that I valued, something that, yes, had less income potential than what I was doing before, I felt so much richer. I felt so much more wealthy because I didn't have to go out and chase a dopamine rush by buying something or going to all of these brunches, things like that. It really pared down my lifestyle and made me really dial into the simple things because I didn't feel like I had to make it worth it to myself. And I know that's not feasible for every single person, but there can be an energy around recognizing, what am I doing it for? Do I own what I possess, or does what I possess own me? Am I just stuck in a rat race around trying to keep up with the people around me, or keep up with my car payment, keep up with this payment, have this stuff on Afterpay, I need to buy this. And Chiron, early into its journey in Taurus, will square Jupiter in Leo. And the thing is about those sorts of displays of wealth around I need to show off and it's so extravagant and so extreme, is that that's not true wealth. My hope of the medicine of Chiron in Taurus is that this can be a time of us shifting into true wealth, true abundance. A lot of individuals who are wealthy monetarily are bankrupt in spirit, or bankrupt in terms of their values. So much of their life is around acquiring the money. And then once they have it, it's around defending it, wanting to make as much as possible. And being that energy around it's never enough is not an abundant way of being. So my hope with Chiron in Taurus is that this can be a time of all of us cultivating inner abundance around what's really important to us, what we really value, what we really care about, because stuff is just stuff. It's not to say it's not a real factor of our day to day, but stuff is stuff. And especially when it's so extreme and ostentatious, it's like, what are you trying to prove and who are you trying to prove it for? True abundance and wealth is being able to sit with yourself and feeling at ease with who it is that you are, because you know what it is that you're about. It's cultivating that worthiness from within. And with Chiron and Taurus, I think the individuals who are going to fare the most favorably throughout this time period are those who have cultivated the art of simple pleasures out of life, around not needing the new fancy gadget or the next thing or the next pay bump to be happy, but cultivating ways to cultivate that now, where even if times are tough, finding the simple pleasures where possible, taking your toddlers to the park, cuddling your partner, cuddling your cat, making hearty soups and then freezing some so you have more servings to go out. The economy is always shifting, and it's going to be important where even if you do not feel wealthy financially, to cultivate inner wealth, inner abundance around, I've got 6 little jars of soup frozen in the freezer. I feel so rich. I have this beautiful day on planet Earth. I feel so rich. That's going to be important, even if your finances don't say that you are rich or you're standing within social status. If you can cultivate that within, you will be immune to a lot of the traps of Chiron and Taurus around. You'll feel worthy once you do this. You'll feel valuable once you do this. Cultivating pleasures for yourself, things that you really value, building a life around what it is that you really value, taking time to slow down, really cooking your food. Bonus points if anybody is able to grow their food at this time. I genuinely think there can be a resurgence around more and more conversation being around how food can be medicine. Yes, food can be poison. I do think we're going to see, unfortunately, more and more coming out around how much of our food supply is poisoning us for the name of making these corporations profits and whatnot, but more conversation around how food can be medicine, as well as how food can be community and bringing people together. During harder economic times, a lot of people really rely on one another. So with Chiron in Taurus, if you're making a soup, asking your neighbors to come over and enjoy it with you, or even just being together within a meal, like having gratitude for the fact that we have food on the table. Those who are able to cultivate enjoyment of simple pleasures and gratitude are going to navigate this period the best, and also not feeling shame for pleasure altogether. Pleasure can be something so essential to healing altogether. I went to an event over the weekend, and the speaker was someone who had recovered from cancer, and she was talking about her journey, how the prognosis was her living for only 8 more months. And she did a bunch of different things in reference to her healing journey. But a major piece of it that she shared is that she really strove to incorporate joy within her day-to-day. She strove to incorporate laughter. That is something that is healing to the physical body. I'm not saying laughing takes everything away, but I'm saying it is important, not just what we consume and what we do, but how we do it. And with Chiron and Taurus, building a life that is wealthy in laughter, building a life that is wealthy in rest, building a life that is wealthy in nature and appreciation of nature is going to be so important at this time. There's so many different topics that we've talked about today that are very dark, and this is not me invalidating any of that, but it's going to be important with Chiron and Taurus that we really work the muscle of pleasure and enjoyment and grounding down into the simple things and listening to our bodies, working with our biology, growing our own food if that's possible, connecting to the natural world, having pets, things that bring us into this physical planet can be something soothing. Chiron in Taurus's medicine can be a regulated nervous system. I am safe. I am stable. Regardless if the markets are like this or the markets are like this, regardless of what tomorrow may look like, Taurus energy takes things one step at a time. And it's going to be really important to cultivate that inner sense of stability so that anything that comes at you at this time, it's coming at you via a regulated nervous system, which is going to support you in building a very peaceful life. Peace can also be something that is very healing. This time period is us shifting out of Chiron's journey through Aries, which is much more aggressive. It's much more quick. And with Chiron in Taurus, it's really around slowing down, not rushing our healing, being patient with our healing, taking things one step at a time is going to be really key at this time. If you have within your natal chart Chiron in Taurus, that means throughout 2026 to 2034, you will be experiencing your Chiron return. Now, it's important to make a couple of caveats there. Firstly, Chiron is not consistently in Taurus throughout those years. It dabbles in 2026, retrogrades back into Aries, and then moves in for good in 2027. And it also dances into Gemini in the later years as well. And even when it is in Taurus, it's not to say that these Chiron return themes will be 100% present from beginning to end. Your Chiron return will be activated and accentuated when Chiron in Taurus gets to the exact degree that you have your natal Chiron within. For example, if you notice that you have Chiron in 13 degrees Taurus, you are likely going to feel these Chironian themes the most dominantly when transiting Chiron gets to that degree. And so what are the Chiron return themes that you could be experiencing? This can be a time, a rite of passage really, that you recognize where healing is necessary or where healing has always been necessary, but you snoozed it away, numbed it away, bought it away, ate it away. It's not to say it'll be constant pain and triggering throughout this entire period, but if there have been certain sore spots that you have glossed over, this is a time that it tends to rise up. what I commonly see with Chiron return is that a lot of times it's not necessarily something brand new coming out of left field. A lot of times it's more so certain events that ping at the old stuff, the old wounds, the old pain points that have always been there. But in certain seasons of life, it was a little easier to ignore. It was a little easier to subdue. With Chiron return, your pain points are up for review. And if there have been certain themes that you've been carrying, it will make itself utterly apparent for the purpose of healing. This can be a time of immense healing. A lot of times during Chiron return, we seek out certain practitioners, certain modalities in order to really do the work that maybe up to this point we have not done or we're not aware of. Oftentimes for those who have done the work, who are very aware of the pain points that they carry, the wounds that they carry, a lot of times Chiron return can bear fruit, a very particular sort of fruit. It's not necessarily a time period where everything comes up roses, but I have seen time and time again individuals step into a healing practitioner role or recognize what they've gone through and how that pulls into their life purpose. It's important to keep that in mind when it comes to Chiron altogether. Is yes, it's painful, but it's the purpose in the pain. It's the wisdom in the wound. It's earned empathy around, I know this because I've been there. And because of that, I'm able to hold other individuals who have gone through something similar. So this can be a time that individuals set up some sort of charitable organization, or they set up a business as a healing practitioner, or they really start to prioritize healing their bloodline and healing the relationship with their children and breaking certain cycles this way. Like, it tends to be a time that not necessarily all of that pain is completely vanished because it's part of our stories. You know, scars fade, but they're still there. It's not to say we ever get to a point that we're 100% healed, but oftentimes with your Chiron return, you see unexpected gifts in what you've been through around, God, that was hell to go through. But the fact that I was able to break the cycle so my children will never have to go through that, or that was so horrible to go through, but because of what I learned from that, I'm able to hold space for others who are going through something similar. Or that was so awful, what I went through and where it touched my heart. But now through the organization that I created, I'm able to help individuals who suffered and struggled in the way that I did. Like I said, with Chiron energy, it's earned empathy. You wouldn't know it unless you've gone through it. And so around your Chiron return, you start to make sense of what it is that you've gone through. And oftentimes there can be certain gifts around, I'm able to give this advice because of what I've gone through. I pursued this degree because of what I've gone through. I was able to have these conversations with my parents, my children, what have you, because of what I've gone through. I was able to understand the unique qualities that it gives me because of what I've gone through. And it's important to know that you natally carry this energy, this wounding around your own value, your own self-esteem, your own worthiness. With having Chiron in Taurus in your natal chart, you may have certain pain around money, whether it's, I know what it feels like to be in scarcity, to not have enough, or maybe money has painful associations around my caretakers were always working, so my needs were denied. So I have painful associations around money is more important than me, or I've seen how money changes people. There can be painful associations around money and around our value, our worthiness altogether. There also can be certain creature comforts or certain material vices that you have turned to in order to numb, in order to cope. You know, this can be the energy of seeking to fill a void. And oftentimes with Chiron and Taurus, it's like, I made lots of money and that didn't fill it. I bought all of this and that didn't fill it. The substances didn't fill it. The food didn't fill it. What fills it? Chiron return could be a time of genuinely finding that out. Or if you found something that supports in that, being able to share that with others. With Chiron in Taurus, there also just can be wounds around security and stability altogether. Around, I've lived in chaos that now stability and security feels boring to me. I don't feel worthy of it. I self-sabotage it, or it feels painful to me that I will not have the stability, the security that I crave, whether I'm insecure in who I am and my worthiness, or I just don't feel secure within my physical environment, whether that is a legitimate fact of what I'm navigating in this period of my life, or regardless of what my outer situation looks like, I always have this looming fear that it's going to be pulled away from me. That all can come up for review at this time during your Chiron return. Now, I would put particular emphasis on the house that it's in. Absolutely, these Taurian themes of food and security and stability and value and self-worth will absolutely be alive, but I would put enhanced emphasis on the house. So when I take it into the all sign house reading, like really dialing into both, yes, it's transiting there, but also being aware this is where it is within my natal chart. This is a pain point of mine, but it's a pain point that has unexpected wisdom associated with it, unexpected tools that I've learned through the processing of this. And this is the time to figure out what that is. Chiron will first enter Taurus on June 19th, where it remains until September 18th, 2026. This is our first taste of Chiron in Taurus, and paying attention to what comes up during this first period of Chiron in Taurus, especially since Chiron in Taurus will square Jupiter in Leo at this time as well. In mid-September 2026, Chiron will dip back into Aries, wrapping up that story that has been ongoing until it shifts into Taurus for good on April 14th, 2027. And by for good, I mean from mid-April 2027 until July 19th, 2033, at which point it enters Gemini, where it transits until October 23rd, 2023, at which point it finishes off its time in Taurus from late October to May 5th, 2034, where the journey wraps up entirely. And while we are all united collectively around experiencing Chiron in Taurus, the scars that it leaves, the triggers that it incites, the pain points that it activates is unique based on where it is transiting within our chart and what aspects it is making to other planets or luminaries within our charts. And so what signs will be the most impacted by Chiron in Taurus? First would be Taurus, obviously, as the transit itself would indicate. They might have a more personal or a more exaggerated dance with Chiron, being that their Taurus placements will experience a Chiron conjunction at some point over the course of the next 8 years. I will also highlight Leo placements, Aquarius placements, and Scorpio placements due to Chiron transiting angular houses, if it's sun or rising, or Chiron squaring any Leo or Aquarius placements and opposing any Scorpio placements. We all have a story. We all have a pain point. We all have pain that we carry. But when it comes to those placements, it may be a little bit more in your face. Also Chiron Return, which we have already discussed. But let's transition into how you can find out where Chiron in Taurus will impact you. There are 2 ways to proceed with the rest of this video. The first, you will go to my description and you will look at the timestamp. You will advance to your rising timestamp, also known as ascendant. That will be the most accurate and the most influential reading for you is your rising, your ascendant. I use solar houses within my practice. If you also use solar houses, I would advance to the sun sign. That is a technique in which we pull the sun into the first house and we set up the houses as follows. Think of that very supplemental. Okay, the bulk of it is your rising sign. The sun sign is a little sprinkle, a little add-on that I've found through my work as an astrologer. Those themes tend to come alive as well, but rising will always be the most accurate. That's the first way to proceed. That will be the case if you use whole sign house system or you're newer to astrology. If you're like, Haley, Comet, what are you talking about? I know that I'm a Gemini and that's about it. Just go with that particular system. Find your rising sign, find your ascendant sign. That will be the most accurate. If you do not have that information available, go to your sun sign or use both if you have both. The next strategy would be what I would recommend if you use Placidus house system, I would listen to your sun sign reading, but to find the accurate house or houses that Chiron in Taurus will transit through, we will want to look at where exactly that is within your chart in Placidus house system. It's a little bit more tricky, but I will guide you with an on-screen tutorial. So I recommend the website astro.com. After inputting your birth information, you will get a circle chart that looks like this. Right here is the Taurus glyph. I am circling it on screen. This is the portion of your chart that is ruled by Taurus. And we see in the example of inner planet Janet, that Taurus glyph expands over two pieces of pizza. We see the 7th house right here, and we see the 8th house right here. So for inner planet Janet, she would want to listen to her sun sign, which is Gemini, but also the 7th house reading and the 8th house reading. That may align with her rising sign. It may be different than her rising sign, but because we see this glyph expands over those two houses with the numbers on the inner ring, we know that Chiron in Taurus will impact both her 7th house and her 8th house throughout the duration of its journey. So now that we have figured out which exact readings that you should listen to, let's go ahead and transition into Chiron in Taurus, all signs, all houses. If you are a Taurus sun, if you are a Taurus rising, or Chiron in Taurus will transit through your first house, this is your reading. This is your emphasis from 2026 to 2034. You are stepping into a chapter that is more personally woven. You've got the Comet Chiron entering the sign Taurus, which is your sign for many of you. For others of you, you just have some Taurus degrees within your first house. But for a lot of you, your sun sign is in Taurus, your rising sign is in Taurus, and now Chiron is in Taurus, and Chiron is the wounded healer. And so your healing is going to be something that is very much a priority for you, and it's very much something that you are wanting to invest in. The unusual gift of this transit is that what was invisible is now visible, because from a house perspective, either actual houses or solar houses, Chiron was in your 12th house, which is the hidden house. And when it comes to Chiron, it's the sting, it's the pain, it's what we carry every day. But 12th house can be very out of sight, out of mind, where certainly it rears its ugly head in all sorts of arenas of our life, but it's a little bit easier to ignore. It's a little bit easier to pretend like it's not there. You are stepping into a period where what has not been healed, what has not been integrated, what has not been processed is going to be very apparent. And once you see something, you can't unsee it. Now, the beauty of this is that this can be an incredibly important time around genuinely healing, genuinely getting better, genuinely creating peace with your own wounds, whether those are psychological wounds that you carry, certain mental themes that you've been navigating, or even certain physical ailments. First house is the house of our physical vessel. And so for some of you, there could have been mystery around your own wellness, dealing with weird symptoms, not being able to make sense of what was happening. And then with Chiron in the first house, sometimes there is a diagnosis, there is awareness around what exactly it is. You know, first house has a lot to do with identity. So some of you could get a diagnosis, which helps you in making sense of who you are in the world around, maybe there's been all sorts of symptoms, but now understanding like, oh, it's because I have been navigating this, or because I'm diagnosed as this. It makes so much sense. It's not that having an accurate diagnosis necessarily makes all of our symptoms go away, but it could create so much understanding in ourselves, and furthermore, give us an accurate treatment plan around how to navigate, or what foods to avoid, or what activities to avoid, or what medications could be helpful, whatever it may be. There may be some sort of identity that you step into at this time that helps you in navigating the world around, oh, I'm not making this up. It's not in my mind. I am this. It's not that I'm a bad person. I just have this particular imbalance. Like Chiron is woven with identity. So there could be an energy where you start to be a little bit more outward about something that you have navigated around. Yes, I am bipolar, or yes, I am gluten-free, whatever it is, like having that woven into your own identity and wearing it without any shame. And in fact, maybe being able to help others because of that, being able to connect with other people who also are navigating celiac and share different gluten-free recipes, or being able to create support groups for individuals who are also navigating a bipolar diagnosis, like finding some sort of unique blessing that comes out of so much hurt and so much pain. And I'm never saying that anybody needs to rush to that around, oh, it's all good that I struggled with this and that because I'm able to help others. Like, obviously, there's grieving, there's pain, there's symptoms that we've navigated. It doesn't take that away. But Chiron energy, it's recognizing unusual blessings that have come out of something so painful and so challenging. Now, I don't want anyone to listen to this and have any fear around, oh gosh, am I going to get some sort of diagnosis? Is it going to be something bad health-wise? That is not what I'm implying at all. That is only one way of how this energy can surface. For others of you, it can be more so not even landing on a certain diagnosis or a certain identity that helps you make sense of yourself and your place through the world, how to best navigate this world. For others of you, it could just be this energy around, I'm not necessarily diagnosed with anything. I just recognize that I have been working it away, numbing it away, suppressing it away. Like, I've been hiding all of this stuff, and now I need to face it. Like, I need to genuinely heal. I need to process. I need to integrate. This can be a time that you make your healing a priority. You do EMDR. You start to really learn what your body needs, any foods that your body is more sensitive to. You start to also heal how you view yourself, your own worthiness, your own value altogether. You know, first house is our appearance. And so with Chiron in the first house, this may be a time that you're very aware of how self-deprecating you are on your appearance, or how cruelly you have treated your body, or how even in some instances, how disconnected you are with what other people see because you view yourself in a particular way. And this could be a time of really healing your self-image, your body image, how it is that you view yourself, and investing in healing. You know, healing is not linear. And this transit is not saying that one day you just wake up and you're like, I love my body. Even if I went through all of these challenges and these hurdles, like suddenly I just love myself. Like, it is up and down, and it is something to invest in. That's my main message to you, is invest in your healing. You are the most precious investment that you will ever make in this world. And we don't have anything if we do not have our wellness, whether that is physical, whether that is mental, whether that is emotional, whether that is spiritual. Invest in your wellness. And obviously, when we invest in anything, there's other arenas of our life where less energy is available. And this might be a time where you're less apt to push through things that you don't want to do, or prioritize everybody else besides yourself. It could be an energy around recognizing, I pay the price for that. You know, we pay the price for everything somewhere. When we push through something that we don't want to do, when we over accommodate because we don't want to get anyone's bad side, like, we pay the price around having to recuperate and having to recover from that. And with Chiron in first house, I do feel like a lot of you are gaining a lot of awareness around your own needs. And this can be a time that if you've been operating in burnout or over accommodating other people, you might start to be aware of where that damages you, or where you pay the price in that. And genuinely investing in your healing, genuinely investing in your wellness. Now, for others of you, this can be a time that you take on an identity as a healer. Like, you step into this new era of yourself where you recognize, I have learned from what it is that I've gone through, and I'm ready to start sharing about it. I'm ready to be seen as a healing practitioner. Even if what I do is not healing, like, I recognize that there is a healing potency that I bring to it. I mean, some of you could absolutely step into some sort of role within the medical industry or within psychology or something like this. Like, Chiron does govern healing of all sorts. But with Chiron in the first house, like, really being able to see yourself as someone who is a healer. And it's not just about being a healer. It's showing other people the pathway of how to heal themselves. And sometimes that's certain tools of what you learned, certain things that helped you through the dark night of the soul, where even if something is not by definition healing, it's like, this helped heal me. Like, I will say astrology healed me. Like, my obsession with astrology was because I was going through something really hard, and astrology was my safe space. It helped me make sense of the world. It helped me make sense of myself. And I do believe it can be one of the healing arts. I guess that's debatable, but I would imagine there's all sorts of things that can be very healing, where it's like, I was going through so much loss and so much grief, but I got into needlepoint, and now I'm passionate about teaching other people needlepoint. Can needlepoint be healing? Why not? It's seeing yourself as that, as a conduit for healing, because it's not that we necessarily have the power to heal anyone else. We share the tools, we share the modalities so that other people can heal as well. And even if everybody who takes our needlepoint class isn't like healed ultimately by the needlepoint, it's also recognizing like, this is a passion I tapped into because of something hard. Like, sometimes we make sense of what we've gone through, not because it's like, yay, I want to repeat that, but sometimes it's like, at least I got into needlepoint. Yeah, I went through hell, but at least I have something to show for it. I got into needlepoint. Yeah, I went through a trying time, but at least I studied astrology the entire time, and there are certain gifts to share around that. We do learn, and there can be certain unexpected gifts around that. This is what you can expect from Chiron in Taurus 2026 to 2034 if you are an Aries sun, if you are an Aries rising, or you have Chiron transiting your second house. This is a big deal because this means that you have wrapped up a major journey back since 2018 of having Chiron in your sign or having Chiron in your first house. That is big. You could have felt like the past 8-ish years or so had a lot of healing that was necessary, potentially a lot of pain, a lot of triggers. It could have been a time that you really had to invest within your well-being. You could have navigated certain health challenges, certain emotional challenges, mental challenges, and there was no hiding from it. You know, when Chiron's in your sign, in your first house, it's very apparent. It's very out in the world, not just to the world, but also to yourself. When Chiron is in a little bit more of a hidden territory of the chart, it's like, yeah, it hurts, it aches if I think too much about it, but I can numb it, I can hide it. For the past 8 years, you have not been able to hide it. Your triggers, your pain points, your healing journey has been something that has had to be prioritized. It's been more in your face. For some of you, you could have started to see yourself as a healer. You could have tapped into certain healing modalities that were helpful for you to share to others. And so I want to start your forecast there by saying this is a big deal that you are transitioning out of this period. Now, the period that you're transitioning into is a lot around your value, your worthiness altogether, and giving yourself permission to have, to possess, to ask for even. You know, sometimes we hold ourselves back from opportunities because we struggle with an underlying fear if we are good enough for it. And Chiron transiting here is a time for you to really do the work around what is operating within you that makes you feel like you need to accept less, settle for less, or not even ask for anything in the first place. This can be a time that you are genuinely having to navigate your own worthiness wounds, accepting less than what you know you deserve in love, in friendship, in finances. You know, this territory that Chiron's transiting through does have a lot to do with money, but worthiness affects us in all sorts of arenas. And the damaging thing about accepting less than what we know we deserve is that the longer that we stay in those sort of environments with those sort of people, the more and more we get brainwashed to think that is what we deserve. We get more and more brainwashed to believe that we should settle for scraps or settle for breadcrumbs, depending on the circumstance. And it could be erosive to our worthiness altogether. And Chiron energy may be making you aware of that. This also can indicate just certain pain points around your finances, around, gosh, I feel like I should have saved more up to this point. I feel like I can't get ahead. I feel like what I'm really good at, I'm being undervalued for what I bring to the table, and the underlying sting of that. There also could be a sting around I'm not providing and that makes me feel worthless, or I'm not taking care of my family in the way that I thought that I would and that makes me feel worthless, or I'm not able to buy what I want and that makes me feel worthless. Like, it's one thing when we are navigating physical material struggles within our external world, and it's another when we are also experiencing wounding on the inside. And that's what I want to emphasize here. I'm not saying you're going to have ultimate pain and deprivation over the course of the next 8 years. What I want to bring forward is the underlying sting around I'm not worthy of having what it is that I want, or I'm worthless to my loved ones because I'm not able to provide for them. There also, even if we're not materially struggling, Chiron energy can also indicate sting around that, around I'm making more than I ever made, yet I still feel hollow. I still feel empty, or I bought all the nice things, yet the void is still here, or I made money and it changed the people around me. People act different around me because they expect me to pay for everything, and that hurts. I don't know who really values me or who just values me due to my monetary quality that I can benefit into their lives. And so that can come up. And for others of you, healing may be something you're really investing in at this time. You may start to allocate more of your budget towards therapy. You may start to allocate more of your budget towards different supplements that can be helpful, or spending more money around a more nutritious diet, like spending more, but for the purpose of wanting to feel better, putting your money towards you feeling the best that you possibly can, or putting more money towards your healing altogether. That also can bring about certain pain points around I should not have to spend this much to just not pass away. Like, I should not have to spend this much in order to navigate the world and just feel okay. Like, that can be a pain point that comes up, but it's knowing that you are the most important investment that you will make in this world. And nothing matters if we are not well, mind, body, and soul. And so that may be something that you are really investing in. Second house brings up our money and how we spend it. And so with Chiron here, you may be investing more so in healthcare, in healing, in therapy, in alternative healing modalities, in organic food, whatever it may be. That may be more of like a priority, a value of yours. This could also be a time that you invest in a program in order to understand some sort of healing modality, maybe to do it yourself, or maybe to essentially learn all that you can learn from it. You might be investing in healing modality in order to make money doing it in some sort of way, or just to better understand and caretake for yourself. These are the themes that you will experience from 2026 to 2033 if you are a Pisces rising, if you are a Pisces sun, or if Chiron will transit your third house. This brings up themes around the mind, and a lot of you can recognize that your mind has been plotting on your downfall, that your mind is your own worst enemy. That may be something that is made incredibly apparent throughout the course of this particular transit. And you may start to learn more about your mind, what it needs in order to feel safe, in order to feel secure. We all have different brains that are wired in different ways. And Taurus brings up themes around our biology. And so there can be an emphasis around how is it that I can make it so my mind is not the enemy, and so that I'm not trying to go against how I was wired. Like, how can I work with the unique ways that my brain is wired in order to navigate the world in ultimately a more stable and secure way? That's really what Chiron in Taurus craves. And this can make it apparent to you around my mind does not like to be at peace. Things may be peaceful, but my mind and my anxiety makes me feel like something might happen or the next shoe is going to drop. And this may be a time that you really invest energy in understanding your mind, understanding how it's wired, as well as certain things that you can do in order to navigate the world in a more healthy way mentally. For example, Chiron in Taurus does bring up themes around nutrition. So this might be a time you get more into gut health and recognize the connection that it plays as it relates to your mental health. There can be a focus around focus, honestly, and the energy around, gosh, it's so challenging to focus. Or I find if I eat a big breakfast, it's easier to focus. Or I find if I do these particular tools, it's easier for me to process complex information. This can be a time around working with your brain, but Chiron in the third house can make you feel like, why am I this way? Why is my brain wired this way? And it's important to work with yourself rather than fighting against yourself. And some of you could start to get more into learning about a healing modality. You could be consuming all sorts of information that supports you in making sense of the world. Third house is very much around logic. So there can be an energy around understanding, oh, that's why I am this way, or oh, that's why this person treats me this way. Like certain information that you take in that doesn't take the pain away. That's important to know with Chiron energy. It's not that we ever crack open a book and it completely wipes out all of what we've gone through, but there may be certain information that you come across during this time that helps you make sense of it. Because when we feel seen, when we feel like our pain is validated in some way, a lot of times that supports us in the roadmap of recovery. You know, this is a lot of Pisces placements who experience, not all, but a lot of Pisces placements. And with Pisces energy, because it's a sign that's very associated with fantasy and imagination, there are often themes around feeling like, oh, I'm crazy, or I made it up. It's all in my head, like gaslighting oneself, because oftentimes with Pisces, they could be told you're delusional, you're this and that. And hey, I'm not saying that Pisces placements are not delusional when it comes to some things. And I'm saying that as a Pisces sun myself, but it's more so the mental undercurrent that is at play when we are constantly told you're making it up. And then we learn certain information where we recognize, no, this is legitimate. It can help validate your point of view. And unfortunately, when so many of us have had our reality warped and we've been gaslit to a point, oftentimes seeing it reflected back to us via a book oftentimes helps to prove our point in a sense. Not that we need to prove it to anybody else, but it helps you validate it, because sometimes we don't even validate our own point of view, our own mind, because there's such a story around being delusional and you're crazy and it's all in your head. Sometimes there could be an energy around, see, I'm not crazy. See, this book says this. See, I'm learning about this. And however that shows up for you, there can be certain information that helps you validate your own perspective and thus creates a roadmap for healing. Some of you could start to talk about more vulnerable topics than you have before, starting opening up about your trauma, around your pain, finding support groups, support systems. That's the other benefit of finding certain material that helps to understand what it is that we've gone through, is then we can connect with other people around it. I keep seeing within my mind's eye the day that I learned about narcissism. You know, that really made some things that did not make sense make sense. And the beauty of it was being able to connect with others who have unfortunately had their own brush-ins with malignant narcissists. It didn't take away what I went through, but it helped me not feel crazy. Because sometimes when you don't understand certain things and you only rely on your own mind and you are told all sorts of things, you start to undervalue your own mind and your own thinking. And that's important to bring forward here, because with Chiron in the third house, there is a major focus on the scripts that are playing within your mind and understanding how some of them are harmful. Some of them are erosive to your own value, to your own worthiness. And again, sometimes we just replay what we've been told from others. And so with Chiron in the third house, this can be a really powerful time around recognizing what is playing out within your mind. I additionally want to share here that third house is around social media. It is around marketing. It is around word of mouth. So like I said, some of you could start sharing more. You could be more vulnerable as it relates to your channels. You could write a book around your healing journey thus far and the tools that you gained from it. You could start learning about something, getting a certification of something to help heal yourself, help heal others with this energy. Third house is also neighbors. members, it's also siblings, it's also extended family members. So there can be painful themes that come up around these particular arenas of life as well. And in addition to speaking up around your trauma and your pain and whatnot, there also can just be an emphasis at this time around speaking up in general. Like some of you could have felt like you had to swallow your truth. You had to suppress when you were uncomfortable, that you had to play to what other people wanted you to hear rather than what you genuinely wanted to say. And while Chiron energy can bring up those wounds around what has caused you to swallow your tongue, what has caused you to feel unsafe communicating your point of view, this also can be a time around starting to voice your truth. You know, Chiron energy doesn't make it easy whatsoever, but it can be a time around recognizing this is where I've suppressed my truth. And as I speak up now, I speak up for those younger versions of myself who was unable to. And there's something healing in that. It doesn't take away all of the times that I just put up with less than I deserve and didn't communicate my boundaries and didn't speak up for myself, but I am stepping into the worthiness of my voice, as well as enforcing my boundaries around no, that doesn't align for me. Yes, that does align for me. Speaking up around that. You know, sometimes we don't even feel like our point of view has worth at all. So we don't add it, where we just had to go along with what was happening. We settle for whatever's in front of us. Like a lot of times we don't recognize how valuable our voice is. And this could be a transit around healing that. This is what Chiron in Taurus is about for you. If you are an Aquarius rising, if you are an Aquarius sun, or if you have Chiron in Taurus impacting your fourth house, there are themes and pain points that are being dug up at this time. And by this time, I mean 2026 to 2034, around your home, around your family, around your ancestry. Let's dig into this. I am not implying that something awful is going to happen to your family. That is not what I'm saying. Chiron energy, what I've found through myself, through my clients, and validated by many other books from astrologers on the topic, it's more subtle, it's more psychological. Like when we look at the cosmos, we have to look at things all together. And when it comes to massive life events, life-changing events, oftentimes Chiron is not the reflection of that. So I do not want you to move into this period in fear. Chiron energy tends to show up a lot more subtly. It's a lot more of the psychological pain that we carry. It's a lot around our own pain points. And so what I'm seeing about this period for you is that it's less so something disastrous and horrible happening with family, and more so a digging up of embedded wounds that were always there. This could be a time that you uncover massive awareness as it relates to familial trauma, generational trauma, like really understanding what your mom went through, what her mom went through, like understanding what is passed along. You know, earlier in this video during the Chiron in Taurus history section, I was sharing about how even if someone did not live during the Great Depression, a lot of times they internalized and then practiced some of the habits that were formed at that time. It was not their trauma, but it was felt deeply by those who had birthed them and raised them. And thus they replayed those particular themes, whether it was hoarding, holding on to dollars, all of which makes sense when you think about the context. But where generational trauma is enduring is that even if the context is different, the patterns, the loops are the same. And so for some of you with Chiron in Taurus here, you could gain awareness around certain eating habits of your caretakers and how they shaped your eating habits. You can gain awareness around how your caretakers discussed money and how that shaped your relationship with money. And it's also knowing there's some inherited trauma that is, our psychological blocks, but there's also socioeconomic factors where oftentimes a lot of people will be trapped in certain systems that their parents were trapped into just by nature of where it is that they are in the world, their own social mobility, their own economic status. And that is passed along where most of the time, there's absolutely exceptions, but most of the time, most people will earn about what their family earns returned, and so on and so forth, because of all sorts of factors where they were brought up and the resources they had access to. And so this could be a time around really digging into that. And for some, if you did break a cycle, if you did break a loop, sometimes there's certain shame about that, certain wounds around that, where if you are living a drastically financial reality from your family, all of a sudden you are like the familial ATM, and there's a pain point around that, around now that I made something of myself and I fought in order to get here. Now it's all around people borrowing money from me and fights around money and things like this. And so that can be a reality for some. For others, there just could be certain pain points around, wow, I'll never be able to make what my parents made due to the current economic reality, or pain points around property in general, like a pain around, I feel like I will not own where it is that I live. And that sucks. Like, I want ownership. I crave ownership. Ultimately, that's what Taurus is about, ownership. But yet it's denied from me. I don't have land. I don't have property. And if you do have land or property, there can be certain pain around it, around there's certain things with upkeep that you internalize around, I should have known to check this, or I should have known to get this inspection before moving in. And we don't know what we don't know as it relates to owning a house. And there's so much that comes up with it that you are just not prepared for. But where Chiron energy gets really treacherous is when it like internalize around, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid, I can't do anything right. Strive to do the best that you can do to take care of the investment, if that is land, property, a home, what have you, but don't beat yourself up. There's sometimes just certain like ouches as it shows up around, I didn't know how to do this because nobody in my family has done this before. You know, whether that's having a home and you didn't know how to do certain things, or having a home and your parents or caretakers passed away before they were able to show you how to do certain things, or because you live in a different financial reality than your family, not feeling very resourced in terms of learning things. It just could bring up this energy within our soul with the energy of Chiron. And fourth house, as I noted, is around family altogether. And so there can just be certain familial wounding that is brought to the surface, and potentially, hopefully by the end of this transit, moving towards peace, whether that is protecting your peace, enacting no contact, whatever the situation is, or peace as it relates to the family unit. Like Taurus is around peace. It's around the simple things. And with Chiron in Taurus, there can be a certain wounding around deeply wanting the simple things, wanting the family life and feeling not worthy of it or feeling denied of it in some way. Fourth house is also our emotional state. And so with Chiron here, there can be certain triggers that are coming to the surface emotionally for the purpose of being satiated. And I don't mean satiated around numbing yourself. I don't mean satiated around buying things to ignore it. I don't mean satiated around consuming things in order to ignore it and avoid it. Be conscious of that if that is something that comes to the surface throughout the duration of this transit, because it can be reflecting that. But really the ask is, how is it that I sit with the discomfort and sit with the pain? You know, pain is a universal experience. Every single one of us on this planet will experience pain. And it's important how you navigate it, how it is that you accept it, how it is that you surrender to it, and finding ways to appropriately cope with the pain rather than seek to numb it or consume things in order to avoid it. You also could, even if it's not connected to money, food, property, you could just recognize certain wounds that your family has carried, certain cycles that have been passed on from person to person, or even as it relates to a maternal figure or something like this, like recognizing where they are struggling, whether that's physically dealing with certain ailments or mentally navigating certain things. Some of you, if you are in a caretaking role, can experience some level of caretaker burnout. And It's not to say Chiron in and of itself is always associated with burnout, but it is just kind of the ache around my value is how it is that I take care of this particular person. And sometimes that can wear on our soul, just the amount of constant availability that is needed with those particular roles, as well as in some instances, the financial obligation as well with Chiron in Taurus that can be a theme that comes to surface at this time. For those of you who are Capricorn risings, Capricorn suns, and or will have Chiron in Taurus transit their 5th house, this message is for you. And you are on a journey over the course of the next 8 years of healing your inner child. Let's start there, especially since a lot of you are Capricorn placements who had to grow up very quickly, who had a lot of responsibility on you. This is a time to connect to and nourish the inner you that exists within. And sometimes we don't recognize how certain problems that we are dealing with within our physical material reality stems back to that younger version of ourselves. Because I know a lot of you are very grounded. You're like, Haley Comet, I don't have time to heal my inner child. Recognize that the wounds that our inner child carries oftentimes can impact our love life, who it is that we are drawn to romantically. It can impact our experience at work, our experience creating. There can be all sorts of real life implications that stem from a wounded inner child or an inner child who was told you are not worthy. There's no time for play. Your art isn't any good. Whatever your inner child internalized, this is a time around recognizing where that is impacting your world altogether and seeking to build a relationship with your inner child where y'all are like this, close, connected, and you look out for them. You protect them. You know, it can be helpful, but also emotional to look at pictures of yourself when you were very young, because sometimes you're like, gosh, they shouldn't have had to go through all of what they went through. But your job now is to keep that version of you safe. Even if that version of yourself was not protected as they should have been or taken care of as they should have been, you can still do things to take care of that version of you that still exists within. You know, sometimes when we are in certain romantic connections that make us feel unsafe, you know, there is a younger version of ourself who is tugging on our pant leg and saying, I don't like this. Can we go home? I don't like this person. I feel uncomfortable. But especially if we have certain patterns of ignoring how we feel or ignoring our comfort altogether, we can put ourselves in experiences that makes our inner child feel uncomfortable. Now, granted, we have to do things to take ourselves out of our comfort zone to challenge ourselves. Not everything will make us feel 100% safe, but especially when it comes to love, when it comes to romance, when it comes to certain arenas of our life that don't feel good, where it's like, I don't feel safe here. It's honoring that, because if you've had patterns of having to neglect your own comfort, push it down in order to be what other people wanted you to be, or you're in an environment where your comfort was not prioritized, oftentimes that leads to certain behaviors around, it doesn't matter how I feel, I'm going to keep pushing on. I'm going to keep burning myself out even when I'm exhausted. I'm going to keep being around this person even when they don't make me feel safe. I'm going to keep entertaining these particular connections even if they don't make me feel as special and as valued as I know that I am. Because I look at this photo of me when I was younger and she is so precious and she's so valuable, and I want to put her or him in situations where that honor and worth is reflected and celebrated. And so some of you are on a journey of healing that, connecting to that. And even outside of inner child, literally, 5th house speaks to pleasure. So does Taurus. And so this could be a time around recognizing the healing potency of joy and of pleasure altogether. I'm talking to a lot of Capricorns, so y'all typically have very strong work ethics, and there can be an energy around there's no time for play, or as soon as my company goes public, or as soon as the startup gets launched, or as soon as I achieve this, then I'll enjoy my life, then I'll slow down, what have you. But where is it that play can be part of the process? And even when we think of the healing energy of Chiron, joy is healing, play is healing. And sometimes when we're in that particular cycle around I'll slow down once, I'll have more fun once, sometimes we have certain situations that make us realize that time isn't as abundant as we may feel like it is. And if we keep denying ourselves joy and play and pleasure for this someday, when the goalposts keep moving, we are denying ourselves a life. Sometimes it takes, and I'm not at all implying this is what's going to happen during this transit, but sometimes it takes like a health scare around recognizing what we've been putting our bodies through, burning itself out, or sometimes it takes something to transpire for us to recognize, I need to enjoy this experience. I need to savor this experience. I need to have more fun. I need to experience more joy and give myself permission to build a life around what I enjoy, around what I find pleasurable. This energy, as we discussed earlier in the video, it can get hedonistic. So if you do have certain vices or things that you do to cope or to numb or to fill a void, this can be a time around it's not hitting like it used to hit. We get a dopamine rush when we spend money. We get a dopamine rush when we party. But like at a certain point, we need more. We need a bigger hit. We need a bigger dopamine rush to get the same effect. And so some of you could be on this journey around it's not doing what it used to do. And so your idea of fun and play and enjoyment may go through some sort of shift at this particular time as you recognize what it is that you do in order to numb, in order to cope. But joy is something to be prioritized. Joy is healing. Laughter is healing. And this could be a time around recognizing that. And there can be certain pain points around that, I feel like I've built a life that doesn't have joy. I don't have pleasure. Maybe I have certain pleasures, but it doesn't hit how it does before. Or I'm so busy working, I don't have time to cultivate joy. There can be pain point around that, as well as pain points around the creative potential within that your outer circumstances have not given you the environment to cultivate. Like recognizing I could have been an amazing painter, but I never had time to prioritize that, or my potential was never nourished by my caretakers. And so that potential within, just like a seed that has not been able to be planted, and that hurts. Potential can feel like a burden because it just sucks to know that you have this skill, have this ability, but it was not properly watered. It was not properly acknowledged. And there could just be a pain around seeing other people doing what it is that that you could do had you been given the chance, or just even a pain point around not having time to pursue your creative hobbies, to pursue your creative endeavors. There also can be healing around children altogether, whether it's healing your relationship with your children or recognizing certain patterns that you are breaking as it relates to your bloodline, wanting to give your children a better life than what you experienced. Some of you could recognize certain patterns that are alive within your children, or this could be a time that you're investing within their healing and feeling the pain of that. Some of you, as it relates to fertility and your decision to have children, some of you could just be carrying the weight around, that was something I wanted for my world, and because of certain circumstances, that is not something that I'm living, or I'm not sure if I'm going to live with that, and I would deal with the pain of that. Or if some of you opt to not have children, there can be certain wounds at this time around, I live in this society where my worth is dictated by my ability to bear children. And that's not something that is within my plan currently. And I hold on to the pain of that around my value being around my ability to be a mother, be a father, what have you. There can be pain points around that as well. I would say that while there can be pain around these hobbies don't give me pleasure anymore, I don't feel like I have joy in my life altogether. My encouragement at this time, cultivate joy, cultivate pleasure. It might take a different definition, but this is a time in which your joy, your play, your creativity, your self-expression is healing at this time. It's going to nourish you. It's going to pour into you. That's something to be prioritized at this time. This message is for you if you are a Sagittarius rising, if you are a Sagittarius sun, and or Chiron in Taurus will impact your 6th house. These are some of the themes that you can expect from 2026 to 2034 on and off. Sixth house is around health. The prevention of illness and disease is oftentimes what it's referred to. And Chiron is around healing. So with this combination, it does feel like you're moving into a season in which you are really prioritizing your health. I am not saying this in a fear-mongering way whatsoever. I'm not saying new random health issues are going to befall you throughout the course of the next 8 years. What I am saying is that there may be certain symptoms, certain food sensitivities, certain lifestyle factors that you recognize at this time are getting in the way of optimal health. This can make things surface, maybe things that were always there. This is not me implying that you are going to have all sorts of health issues befall you through the course of the next 8 years. What I am implying is that this can be a time where you start to recognize how certain lifestyle factors, how certain food sensitivities, how certain components of your daily life are either aiding or hindering your journey towards optimal health, feeling well in every context of the world. Maybe you've always felt a little weird after eating nightshades. Maybe you always leave your place of work covered in hives all over. Maybe that's been something that has been the case, but this can be a time in which you are more invested with Chiron and Taurus in healing. And so recognizing, hey, nightshades have this sort of effect. Maybe I can make a shift as it relates to my daily diet. Or, hey, this work environment for whatever reason is making me break out in hives. Maybe I'll be open to a different work environment. And health is multifaceted. And I want to mention that because Taurus is very much around our biology. And there can be an energy around recognizing how healing is multifaceted, where you can take certain things that will take away the hives, but this could be a time that you're more so interested in the root cause of the hives. Am I stressed out from my coworkers? Is there mold in the walls at my workplace? Is it because of imposter syndrome that I'm getting so worked up that I break out in hives? It's like wanting to understand the root cause in order to genuinely promote healing. Chiron in Taurus is going to make fix-it-alls seem very appealing. Take this supplement, take this, fix it with this. But this could be a time in which you're really wanting to understand what factors of your lifestyle and your daily routine are aiding or hindering your health. And, when it comes to sixth house energy, this can also bring up themes around health anxiety. This is coming from someone who has Pluto transiting their sixth house. And ever since it moved in, I've had nearly debilitating at times health anxiety. Pluto is much different than Chiron. The reason I share that is because there's so much in this day and age. There is so much. And it's not the best use of both of our time for me to sit here and say all of the different things that can be impacting our health. And sometimes we can go down a rabbit hole of panic and fear around, oh, it's the aluminum cans, oh, it's the microplastics, oh, it's this. And that is not me saying that there are not legitimate concerns around all of these things. What I'm saying for you is that it's not a peaceful way to live, stressing about all of the different things. And Chiron in Taurus, especially in your sixth house, it's knowing that peace is an important part of the puzzle as it relates to living a healthy life, where we can strive to make the most intelligent, mindful decisions around our food, around our environments, around how we store our food, all of that. But still, just by the nature of being on this planet, we will be exposed to certain things, and it doesn't do you any good to obsess and panic. That is poison for the body, stress, not to add to any sort of health anxiety, but it's just saying, hey, I can learn about this information. I can strive to do the best that I can. But unfortunately, there are certain factors that I am exposed to, and I need to interact with these themes without letting them consume me, without letting them eat at me. And just striving to do the best that you can, nutrition-wise, diet-wise at this time, around seeking to not just eat all of the fiber and the protein. Absolutely, prioritize that. Food can absolutely be medicine at this time with Chiron and Taurus in your sixth house, but also having pleasure within your day-to-day. That's really good for the body. Cuddling is really good for the body. Pleasure is really good for the body. Laughter is really good for the body. body. And that is really helpful in preventing us getting sick, is living a life of fun and of pleasure and of play and of good things in moderation, right? So it's wanting to live a balanced lifestyle. This transit can be marked with either excess consumption or under consumption, and just being mindful of that. Some of you may start to grow your own food because of concerns around what's on the fruits, what's on the vegetables. You may want to grow your own garden. If you have a pet, this can be a time of spending lots of healing time with your pets. Again, animals are a way that we connect to the natural world. When our cat is sleeping on us and purring, it just kind of brings us down to the planet and takes us out of fears and anxieties that this world tends to prompt. And if you don't have a pet, this may be a time that you do get a pet. You may get a service dog for some sort of ailment that you've been navigating, or just like an emotional support companion, something like this to aid within your healing. This can be a time that you are investing more within your wellness or combating some sort of illness. And while it is a worthy investment, you feeling well and doing well, there can be pain points around, I should not have to pay for an inhaler. I should not have to pay for insulin to keep me alive. Like there just could be a pang of that if you do live in a country like I do, where healthcare is abnormally and absurdly expensive. Like there just could be a pain point around, this isn't right. Or maybe you feel like you're denied the care that you live, where it is that you live, you don't feel like there's the adequate practitioners, or you don't feel like your symptoms are validated. Maybe you don't feel believed by medical professionals, and feeling the pain of that around, I wish my pain meant something to the individuals that I'm talking to. I feel like it's not being validated. And outside of health themes, sixth house brings up a lot around work. And so with Chiron in Taurus in sixth house, you could feel undervalued, underappreciated by coworkers at this time, or just have certain themes around, just this familiar ache around not feeling heard, or feeling like my ideas are being talked over. There could be some sort of ache around, yes, it's this workplace and it's these coworkers, but it's also bigger than them. It's existed before them. It also reminds me when I was in this particular environment. It also reminds me when I wasn't heard here, when I was undervalued here. There could be certain pain points that are coming alive as it relates to your working world. And sixth house is also people that we employ. So there can be certain pain around that, around fear of being betrayed, or a sting around being betrayed by someone that you have hired, or something like this. An ache around knowing that you need more help, you need more support, yet that is not being made available to you. Sixth house is our labor. And so with Chiron in Taurus in sixth house, this can be a time that you not only feel the physical manifestations of how hard that you've been working, but also just like the ache around life shouldn't be this way. There shouldn't be so much of my energy having to go towards making money and surviving. Like you could just feel the ache of that around how deeply unfair it feels. And with Chiron in Taurus, my encouragement at this time would be to find pockets within your daily routine that promote healing, like making healing part of your daily practices. Like even if it's just something like meditation in the morning, it's doing it for the purpose of coming back to your soul and grounding down, like going for walks after work, like doing things for the purpose of balancing yourself, recalibrating. This can be a time that you get more into healing altogether. You start going to yoga, something like this, for the purpose of wanting to feel the best you can, mind, body, and soul. If you are a Scorpio rising, a Scorpio sun, or you will have Chiron transit your sixth house during the Chiron in Taurus transit, this is a big deal. This transit is a big deal. Whether it's opposing your Scorpio placements, whether it's transiting an angular house, wherever it is that you fall in those categories, you are a main character of the Chiron in Taurus transit. And so let's talk about what that will entail. This is impacting the territory, either by actual houses or solar houses, that is around connection, relationship, one-to-one partnership. And this could be a time of uncovering certain pain points around building a connection with another. And not just building a connection, but sustaining a connection in which you feel safe in. a stable relationship. This transit can be a time that you are healing your attachment wounds. This could be a time that you're getting to the root of where certain painful patterns have surfaced in interactions with others. I am not implying that the next 8 years are going to be rife with pain in one-to-one connections, but what I am saying is that this can be a time of illuminating certain embedded wounds that impact how it is that you relate, how it is that you partner, and how it is that you build connections that are stable, that are mutually beneficial, that make you feel seen, honored, and celebrated within your true worth. If that has not been the case up to this point, this can be a massive period of healing, because we will not be able to have the tools to navigate a healthy relationship if we do not feel worthy of having a healthy relationship. And so if you've had patterns of self-sabotaging within connections, this can be a time of getting to the root of it in order to genuinely have relationships where you do feel seen, you are valued, your worth is honored. And with Chiron transiting here, this can be a time of healing how you show up within partnership, attachment wounds, certain patterns of who it is that you're typically drawn to. Even if there's certain elements of your trauma that has caused you to view stable relationships as boring, or feeling like you need chaos in order to have a passionate connection. This could be a time around getting to the roots and really rewiring that safety is hot. Stability is hot. This is what we want within a connection. It also could make you very aware, for better and for worse, where your trauma has been running the show in terms of who you are drawn to, who you are attracting, who you are attracted to, understanding where it is that you are seeking to satiate certain wounds within your psyche via others. Around this person subconsciously reminds me of my caretaker, so I feel like I need to interact with this person in order to finally get what I want, to get that beneficial outcome that I never got from my actual caretaker. You know, a lot of times our wounds and our attachment patterns will run the show, and we will not understand why we are in certain connections that just triggers every particular wound. Sometimes we meet our soulmate not in genuine life partnership, but our soulmate in terms of picking people where we just trigger one another, or psyches just dance with the other person in such a way that keeps us tantalized by the connection, hooked to the connection, but ultimately very deprived by the connection, or very triggered by the connection altogether. Some of you can have certain themes of financial infidelity that has shown up within your relationship, the two of you needing to heal your finances together, or healing your attitude around finances. There can be a focus there. Or even if your partner is always working and you feel deprived, you don't feel like your partner is present, that can come to the surface. There can be a focus on your partner's healing altogether at this time, around understanding what wounds they bring within the connection and wanting to support them, perhaps be a safe, stable landing for them to process what it is that they are moving through. Again, not depriving you, not treating you less than how it is that you deserve. This is not saying that you need to be anybody's waiting room for them to process their stuff while unnecessarily leaning on you. But if it is an existing relationship, there can be an energy around, I understand that you're going through something, and I'm going to strive to be as grounded as possible so that you can navigate that. Or there could be a focus on, let's heal the connection. Let's come together. Let's get to the root of our particular wounds. Let's understand how your attachment impacts the dynamic, how my attachment impacts the dynamic, and let's be stronger for it. This could be a time that you're more vulnerable with others in general at this time. You may be having to navigate the painful reality of how things are and how they're different than what was told to you and sold to you, around thinking marriage would look like this, relationships would look like this, and dealing with the reality of what you're navigating. Whether you're looking for a spouse, whether you're in a marriage, there can be an energy around dealing with the pain of that. And what I don't want to happen, and why I'm bringing this to the surface, is for you to internalize it. Well, if I were more worthy, if I was more high value, whatever the buzzwords are, then I wouldn't have been treated like this. Or even internalizing the treatment within a marriage around, there's parts of me that know I shouldn't be treated like this, but I guess this is what someone like me is worth. And allowing that to sink into our system. How people treat you has everything to do with them. That is a reflection of them. It is not a reflection of your value. I just shared this in my podcast, Magic Monday, but do you remember that like viral art piece of the banana taped to the wall? If I were to see that banana taped to the wall, I love bananas, I would probably eat it and everybody would be horrified around, don't you know what that's worth? That art piece is worth thousands and thousands of dollars and you just ate the banana? You just treated the banana like that? And that's because I'm clueless and I don't know anything about art, not because of the banana or the artistry or anything like that. Like sometimes our artistry and our worth will be mishandled, and it's not the banana's fault that a clueless person like me thought it was just a little snack, right? And it's not a reflection of its worth. Like allegedly that banana taped to the wall was worth thousands and thousands of dollars because it was art. I'm not an art person. I was not qualified to assess its value. Bananas are 99 cents at Ralph's, so I would have quantified that at 99 cents. Do not have people out here making you feel like you are worth 99 cents because they're clueless, like they don't know what art looks like. And you might have internalized certain behaviors thinking it's something around you, around I would be treated better if I was prettier, if I was richer, if I was more social, whatever it is, like internalizing it and then echoing it. And the damaging part about loops like that is that we want to be right. Our psyche wants to be right, even if it's reiterating painful scripts and painful loops. We want to feel validated. And so if we feel like I'm worthless, I'm nothing, subconsciously we will seek out partners who will affirm that very same storyline, thus enforcing it even deeper around, see, I knew I was worthless. This other person mishandled me, mistreated me. And this could be a really beneficial time to get to the root of that and to build a very nourishing relationship with self that reflects in who it is that you partner with. There could be certain relationships that you're with, like I said, financial infidelity, financial themes coming in. Business partnerships are also alive here. And so there could be an energy around, I feel like I'm carrying more labor than who I'm doing business with. And that's painful and unfair, but it's also layered with certain subconscious stories around I'm always the one who carries more than the other person. This goes back to the group project days in school. I was always the one who had to do it all. Like Chiron energy is kind of that voice around, wow, different circumstance in life. Now I'm in this business partnership and still the same patterns continue. There's something wrong with me. You know, that's Chiron energy. And even outside of business partnerships, there can just overall be wounds around relating to others, not feeling safe to trust others, having been betrayed and experiencing profound betrayal trauma even, or having a hard time opening up to others or being scared to open up to others. Or maybe you've had certain patterns where your needs, your comfort has been pushed to the side. And this could be a transit around, no, I deserve to vocalize my needs, my boundaries, my comfort. But when we do that, we also run the risk of individuals choosing not to put up with it. And I say run the risk because truly anyone who has an adverse reaction to your boundaries, to your comfort, to your safety, is not someone you need to have within your life. And with Chiron in the 7th house, there could be an energy around the fear of being abandoned. And it's not invalidating that, but it's not invalidating yourself. Like any connection where you have to neglect yourself in order to keep it is genuinely not the sort of relationship you want to be in. And I feel like you are on a journey at this time around wanting to invest in connections that feel safe and secure. And sometimes the price that we pay for that is seasons of our life where we are on our own. And Chiron energy could be dealing with the fear of that or the pain of that, being looked differently in society because we're not partnered or what have you. But there is an energy around no longer accepting breadcrumbs in terms of how you interact with others and waiting for the real thing, valuing yourself enough to wait for the real thing in all of your connections. If Chiron in Taurus will impact your 8th house, you may be a Libra rising, you may be a Libra sun, you may just have some Taurus degrees within your 8th house. Wherever it is that you fall in those categories, here are some of the themes that may surface at this time. 8th house is support that we receive from others. It's other people's money. And Chiron transiting here can indicate that there may be some pain points around receiving from others. Either having to ask for help and dealing with pain points around, I can't believe I'm someone who is asking for help, or just the discomfort around receiving from others, being provided for from others, feeling the ache as it relates to our own worthiness. And that is not me, Haley Comet the astrologer, saying that any of that impacts your worthiness, but Chiron and Taurus could just be that energy around, like I wish I didn't have to rely on my spouse as much as I did, or I wish I didn't have to stay financially entangled with my ex in order to keep up my lifestyle. There just could be certain pain points around receiving at this time, and whether that is we are receiving or we wish that we were. Maybe an energy around we're having to carry more of the financial load within our relationship. We're having to do most of the labor and like feeling the pain point around having to hold more than what feels fair as it relates to any sort of commingled financial situation, whether that is business, whether that is marriage. Chiron in the 8th house can also bring to the surface around, I wish I received help. I wish I received support from the government, from a spouse. Like, I wish I wasn't out here having to do it all myself. Like, Chiron energy could be that like kind of pain point of that. 8th house is also debt. So some of you can be feeling the wounding around debt. This is not me saying you're literally going to go into debt in the next 8 years, but Chiron energy is like the psychological sting associated with it. Around it's one thing to be in debt, but it's another to feel the guilt and the shame around it, the fear around it, skirting away from collectors and things like that. Like Chiron energy could just be that sting, that ache. And outside of literal financial debt, 8th house is also where it is that we feel indebted to others, where we feel like we owe others. And that's not necessarily just financial. That could be, I feel like I owe it to my mom to do A, B, and C. I feel like I have to do this. I feel like I am indebted to this particular person. And that can loom large. You know, sometimes we feel like we have a debt that we could not possibly pay back, and that is not really ours to carry. Sometimes we take on like a psychic toll that's really not ours to hold. And Chiron energy could just be recognizing the psychological factors that make it so burdensome. Some of you, not all, there can be certain painful themes that come about as it relates to any sort of joint financial situation. Money that was used inappropriately or secretly, and painful loops brought to the surface there. Fear of that being done, financial betrayal. You know, sometimes patterns repeat. And sometimes these themes of debt kind of shows up familially and ancestrally, where if you saw your mom lie to your dad about the money, your dad lie to the mom about money, like sometimes we build so much of our life wanting to avoid that, and then unknowingly we recreate it in some sort. And there could be an energy around feeling the pain of that surface. Now, 8th house is legal matters. So there can be something where it's like, I got the payoff, but it didn't fix what was done to me. You know, maybe I got a certain payout because of this, but I'm still living day to day with the ramifications of that incident. Or maybe we didn't get the justice that we deserved in a situation. We just live with the ache of it, or knowing that we are entitled to certain money, but we don't have the finances in order to finance the lawsuit, in order to recoup the funds. Like there can be some sort of ache that comes about there. 8th house is taxes. So an energy around it's just not right how much I pay in taxes and what it's going to, like this just isn't fair. There can be an ache in that. And overall, an ache around what in life is not within our control and how unfair that can be. There might be certain grief or loss that you are grappling with. And I'm not implying that's going to come about throughout the course of this transit. It can even just be preliminary grief around recognizing people on this planet are not going to be here at some point in time and dealing with the fear of that. Or even if you lost someone a long time ago, grief sneaks up in random moments. So even just an energy around smelling fresh baked cinnamon rolls from the bakery across the street and being like, gosh, I know who would love that. And I'm not able to tell them about it because they're not on this planet. Like those elements of grief. And while 8th house can govern literal death, oftentimes it shows up in much more psychological ways where it can be us grieving what could have been. It could be us grieving a prior version of self, like recognizing I'm not who I was before. It can never be who I was before. Even just grieving that all things will pass, like there could just be an ache in that. And 8th house is very psychological, so this can absolutely be a time of you diving into the occult in order to heal some element, or getting more into therapy, getting more into psychotherapy, getting more into certain tools in order to dive deep to understand where certain wounds are embedded within, and furthermore, how they can be healed. This Chiron in Taurus forecast is for you if you are a Virgo rising, if you are a Virgo sun, or Chiron in Taurus will impact your 9th house throughout the duration of its transit, on and off from 2026 to 2034. And wherever it is that you fall in those categories, there is wounding yet also healing potential coming alive around academia, education, faith, and travel. So let's dig into this. I want to highlight firstly that some of you can be feeling this embedded sting around not feeling like you are living life fully. Like when we talk about 9th house, we talk about travels and adventures and faith and soul and spirit. And with Chiron energy, there can just be an ache around, I feel like I am not able to travel in the way that I want to. I feel like I'm here to do more than just what I'm doing. You know, a lot of you are Virgo placements. I feel like I'm lost in the hustle of the day to day, and I want to be doing more, experiencing more. I want to feel connected to life altogether, and I feel denied. I feel deprived, whether that's because of financial concerns, whether that's because of certain responsibilities are on you. There could just be an ache at this time around, there's got to be more than this. In fact, I know there's more than this. And with the energy of Chiron here, there can also be a recognition of certain religious programming that is embedded its way into your psyche and into the way that you value yourself. You know, sometimes if we've grown up in a certain religion, even if we do not live by the religion currently, a lot of times it does shape our own worldview and sometimes makes us feel less valuable or yet less worthy because we feel sinful, because we feel bad, or because we're told that our gender is meant to participate in some particular way. And if we're not living in alignment with that, then we are bad. We are not valuable. We are not worthy. And Chiron energy could just make it clear where there's certain religious programming, where there's even certain religious trauma that has wormed its way into your being. And this can be a time that you are seeking answers, but it's very important who you place your faith and your trust in. Like ultimately, your faith and your trust should be in yourself, and be very mindful if there is any guru or any mentor at this time who tries to sell you on a fix it all. This conference is going to fix it all. It's going to heal it all. Absolutely. There are all sorts of amazing individuals who could come into your world at this time and facilitate the process of you healing yourself. But it's knowing just that you are healing yourself, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually. Absolutely. There's gurus, there's doctors, there's people that we go to who have wisdom to share with us. But ultimately, there's power within you. Be very mindful where it is that you outsource your power or feel like anybody's all-knowing guru or mentor or anything like that. Anyone who tries to sell you that is likely full of it and unfortunately runs rampant. You know, Chiron in the 9th house tends to be a time that you are seeking wisdom from others. You are seeking to make sense of this world to a broader level. And unfortunately, that can make you susceptible to being taken advantage of financially with Chiron in Taurus, around spending all of this money to go on all sorts of retreats or conferences in order to feel fixed, in order to feel whole. You can absolutely benefit from these sort of experiences, and this should be a time to seek wisdom and guidance, but it can get dangerous when you feel like one person, one church, one institution is all knowing and the solution to all of your problems. It's important to remain sovereign in your energy around you being the guide of your life, because sometimes people can profit from those periods of life that we are seeking guidance, that we are seeking wisdom. Some people will see it as an opportunity to seek more dollar signs in their bank account, like genuinely. And with Chiron in Taurus, just making sure that your belief systems align with your own values. There also could be themes around education, whether an ache around not having the resources or the ability to pursue higher education, not feeling like you were able to achieve what you wanted to achieve. Also, certain residual wounding around painful experiences that we had during college, during uni altogether. Or even, since there's a lot of Virgo placements here, I just have to say it. If there's any sort of like teacher's pet energy embedded within you, and I want to be so clear what I mean when I say that, sometimes there is an energy around, for me to have worth and worthiness, I need to be favored and adored by the professor, by the mentor. I need to be their very favorite, and I'll do anything in order to prove myself to them. A lot of times when we feel like we have to prove ourselves to anyone, it's because we're wanting to prove it to ourselves. Or, and I'm only valued if I am the absolute best, if I'm seen as the best, if I'm the right hand person. And that behavior can be dangerous when it comes to individuals who are misusing their power. If we feel like we need to prove it to them, we will go above and beyond, pushing our comfort and our values aside in order to be favored, in order to feel worthy by these sort of people. And that could be a pervasive mindset even outside of the college environment, things like this. And it can be a time that you are healing that or recognizing where that is the case. There also could be a certain pain around not connecting with certain religions that you used to connect with, not feeling as connected to a system of faith that you used to feel connected with. But what I will say is that your soul can feel like it's aching at this time, like craving faith within your world, craving a worldview that makes you feel more grounded, more safe to navigate. You know, it doesn't need to be God, but when we feel supported by something, whatever that is for everybody, a lot of times we do feel more grounded, where this outer world is chaotic and wild and so much is happening at all of the times. But a lot of times we just feel safer if we have a worldview that genuinely holds us, that makes us feel safe and secure. And that could be something that you are longing for at this time, and genuinely something that's very healing. You can have certain trips at this time that are very healing or around healing. You could go elsewhere in order to seek out healing if there are certain programs that are available abroad that may be a focus of yours, but there also could just be an ache around not feeling like you're able to travel as much as you would like to at this time. If you are a Leo rising, a Leo sun, or Chiron in Taurus will transit your 10th house, this message is for you. And throughout the years 2026 to 2034, Chiron will be activating your 10th house of career, public persona, and reputation. And when I say activating, I should also say triggering, but also catalyzing, healing in the terrain of your public persona. So let's dig into how this may surface for you. I firstly want to highlight that if you are seeking within your career, within your reputation, to embody the role of a healer, this can be an optimal time of that, to be seen for your healing ability. And when I say healing, I'm not saying you putting your hands on people and healing them, but promoting ways for them to heal themselves. This can be a time that you are really seen as someone who has wisdom in some sort of healing art. And that might be literally you are stepping into the medical field. That could be spiritually doing more Reiki or being seen as a Reiki master in some sort of way. There also could be something healing about your success, maybe healing for a prior version of you, little you, who's told that you were worthless and you didn't have any value to this world. There might be an energy around taking on the CEO position, taking on this promotion, and doing it not just for the fruits of your labor, but to show that little you within that you are worthy, that you do have something to offer this world. Like there can be healing potency around that altogether. Or even something that you love, something that you enjoy, something that gives you pleasure. There can be a unique healing potential around, I'm starting a business around what I've always loved to do. And that feels so healing. And maybe you're even doing something that people like you don't do. You know, like stepping into a different field that is not necessarily the norm, and recognizing that you are an example for others, that you are creating a movement. You know, with Chiron energy, it's around earned empathy, right? So it's that deep interpersonal connection around, I see you, I get you because I was you. And there is something very healing around seeing someone who comes from a background like ours, who looks like us, who has had the same obstacles and challenges in a position of power. That can heal something within us. It gives us more space to dream of that because we recognize, hey, that person's like me, or we see someone on the television around, that person looks like me or came from a background like me. That can make our very essence, our very reputation, something healing for others upon viewing us. And so some of you could be stepping into something like that. There can be certain pain around your bosses, your authority figures, having a painful situation where your boss just does not value you. Your boss refuses to see your worth and in fact sees any opportunity to diminish what it is that you contribute and diminish who it is that you are altogether. And sometimes, yes, it's something new, a boss, authority figure who is mean to us, but sometimes it gets even more painful when it reminds us of something around, ooh, this person's talking to me exactly how my dad used to talk to me. Or, ooh, this reminds me of all of the times that this would happen. Like that's where Chiron energy gets so painful because it digs into the pain that exists within us that is very primal, that's very raw, that's very personal. And that oftentimes doesn't make sense to the outside world. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense to ourselves why we are so triggered by certain things. And some of you can have a boss or authority figure at this time who is very triggering for you. And 10th house being our reputation, there can also be certain things where you have to let go of how you're perceived. Maybe you are stepping into a period of more notoriety. You have more eyes on you. You're getting more traffic. Your business is experiencing more success, whatever it is. I'm not saying Chiron itself would reflect those sort of results, but what I'm saying is if you are experiencing success, Chiron energy can be the pain point around that, around now that I am seen, more people feel like they are owed energy from me. Now that I am seen, there's more people who misunderstand me. There can just be an ache around no matter how much I explain, no matter how much I try to prove myself, there's still people who say A, B, and C. And that's what people are going to do is say A, B, and C. And it doesn't mean it doesn't sting when you see certain comments or when you read certain things about yourself. But with Chiron energy, you could recognize how that's even more painful because of what it's layered upon. Where there might be certain things that people say about you with you being in the public eye, even if they don't know you, where it doesn't bother you. It just rolls right off your back. And there might be certain things that trigger you. And it's important to look at our triggers with Chiron and Taurus, especially within an angular house like it is for you, around why does this hurt me so much? Why does this make me question myself this much? Why this comment? And oftentimes it's because it pings at a sore spot. It pings at some sort of fear that we hold about ourselves. It pings at something that we've been told about ourselves. And it's knowing that when we are successful, there's drawbacks to that. And that could be a pain point here. And on the other side of things, there can also be an energy around, I don't feel successful. I feel like I'm a failure. I feel like I'm not able to level up within career. And that's one thing. But then the other is the internal script and how it is that we beat ourselves up around, I'm so dumb, I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm not doing what it is that I'm here to do. My creation is worthless. I am worthless. It can go and keep spiraling and building and building and building at this time. But ultimately with Chiron in the 10th house, there is an energy around healing how it is that you are perceived within the public eye. And that's not to say making sure everybody knows exactly who you are and feel like you need to prove yourself or defend yourself. Because when we feel like we need to prove or defend ourselves, it's more so to ourselves. Like with Chiron in Taurus, you need to know your worth and know that people will misunderstand you. Whether you're so successful that people are talking about you and saying you're so this, you're so that, or whether you feel like you are not having success and you're feeling judged within the public eye. With Chiron in Taurus, it's knowing your worth. Because when we find our worth around, oh, I'm worthy because look, everybody's applauding, or oh, I'm a piece of crap because everybody's booing, or I'm not getting opportunities, it's very dangerous to hinge our internal sense of self on the outer circumstances, because the outer circumstances are always changing. Right now, it might be quiet as it relates to business or career, but things could get really good for you. Right now, you might be flying high, having all sorts of success, but things can change. And I don't share that from like a fear-mongering standpoint. It's just the reality of life. You gotta just be able to navigate what life throws our way while remaining solid and steady in terms of your internal values and your inherent worth. If Chiron in Taurus will transit through your 11th house, you may be a Cancer rising, you may be a Cancer sun, you may just have some Taurus degrees within your 11th house, but regardless of where you fall into those categories, you are stepping into a roughly 8-year period where you are healing certain wounds associated with community, associated with friendship, and furthermore associated with belonging. So let's dig into it. I firstly want to highlight that Chiron transiting here in actual houses or solar houses can ping at wounds that you carry around feeling part of a group or even part of society. Like when we talk about 11th house, we talk about, yes, friendships and community, but also just our place in the world. And some of you could have felt like, I don't know what my place is. I feel different than other people. And that might have been something rampant within your world, something commonly occurring around feeling like the odd one out, feeling like you don't know where to sit at the lunch table, feeling different than your peers. And a lot of times when that is the case, we internalize it. We start to see ourselves as not worthy, as somebody who doesn't add any value as a friend. And Chiron energy can be bringing that up to the surface. Some of you could have had certain painful experiences with friends that makes you scared to open up and trust anyone because you've been betrayed, because somebody has taken advantage of you, because someone did mistake your kindness for weakness, and feeling scared to trust another friend. There also just could be a wound around, why am I not good enough to have friends? I go online, I see these big groups of friends, I see all of these people, and why am I not good enough? Why am I not enough? Chiron in Taurus could dig at that particular wound within. Why am I not enough? And we don't find our enoughness by establishing our social position in relation to other people. That's never going to give you an accurate litmus test of your true worth and value, especially when you're standing amongst people who don't share the same values as you, or wouldn't even be people that you would want to befriend. You know, sometimes we spend so much of our life wanting to prove our worth or prove that we're cool to other individuals that when it comes down to it, it's like, I don't even think you're cool. Why do I care if you think I'm cool? And I know this sounds quite juvenile, but a lot of individuals get stuck in the rat race of keeping up with the Joneses. Like some of you could live in an environment where other people have a lot more resources. They're very wealthy, and you're internalizing this wound around, I'm not making what everybody else is making, or an energy around, I feel like I have to keep up. All of my friends are doing this, so I feel like I have to do this as well. Like the social pressure can be something that's very alive, as well as just feeling the pain around what your community is going through. You know, there could be some sort of issue that is affecting a lot of your friends or your community or just humanity altogether. Like Chiron transiting here could just be like like it just makes my soul ache that this is where we're at as humankind, like that this is where we are. And with Chiron transiting here, you may find yourself very drawn to healing groups, wanting to be around people who are also navigating similar themes of what you've navigated. Again, you could read all of the books about a certain topic, but there is a particular knowledge that you gain only when you yourself have gone through it. No matter how many books you read, how many audiobooks you listen to, how many interviews you listen to on a certain matter, there is certain information that will not be made available to you until you go through it yourself. That's why within astrology, you could read all of the books on a certain transit, but there will still be certain elements on that very transit that will surprise you when it happens to you. We can seek to interact with the world as cerebrally and logically as possible, but real life is the ultimate teacher, and pain is a teacher as well, which Chiron makes us very aware of. So there can be certain things that you've navigated through where you want support, and support from people who get it, who can genuinely hold you, even when so many other people make you feel alone or isolated in what it is that you're carrying or the particular wounds that you've navigated. So this can be a time that you are being very intentional to seek out support groups. This can be a time that you are being very intentional to seek out meetings, things like that, to be around people who can support your healing and support your journey altogether, make you feel seen in a world that can make you feel so not seen. When we're struggling through pain, it can just feel cruel that life continues on. That the bus still comes and people still go to work and the phone still rings. When we're holding pain, it feels like the world should stop. And there can be an energy around just feeling the isolation in that, and around, wow, people are just still going to work and taking the bus, and here I am holding this. And you may find that you're drawn to groups who can hold you within this, because I'm not saying this entire transit is lonely and isolated. There just could even be an energy around, I feel lonely even when I'm around groups or friends because of what I'm carrying. Maybe there is certain healing that is showing up within certain friendships of yours. We have to invest in community. We have to invest in friendships. And so investing in repairing the friendship if there was a fracture, or investing in community if there has been energy around, I feel so alone, I don't feel like I'm supported here, like consciously watering the garden of your community can be a focus at this time. 11th house is also our hopes and dreams for the future. And so with Chiron energy, there could be an ache around, I don't know if I'm going to fulfill my dreams. And that hurts. Maybe there's financial setbacks, financial circumstances that hold me back from going in the direction of my dreams. Maybe it's just the reality of what I'm living right now. Maybe it's the reality of how the world is right now. Maybe it's an underlying fear that I'm not good enough to have what it is that I really want. But it hurts. It digs at me. Some of you could really strive to heal others at this time. Maybe you're not seeking out the support groups. Maybe you're creating them. Maybe you're creating a certain organization. Or even if you are on social media, you could build an audience or following around a tender Chironian topic, talking about certain things that you've gone through and accumulating an audience who gets it and feeling the healing potency in that. Honestly, there is a lot of healing around recognizing that you are not alone. You're not an island. Oftentimes our pain makes us feel that way. And sometimes we're in environments where there is not necessarily alignment, but it is very healing to open up about what you've gone through and to have other people like in the comments digitally say, hey, I get it. I've been there. If you are a Gemini rising, a Gemini sun, and or Chiron in Taurus will transit through your 12th house, this reading is for you. This is what you can expect from 2026 to 2034 as Chiron will transit Taurus. And this is the hidden territory of your chart. And what I want to highlight firstly is that there may be sudden glimpses of awareness around certain pain that you're carrying. And it may bubble up from your subconscious to your conscious mind in unexpected ways. It may come in dreams around, you tell yourself, I'm so over that. And then you have a dream and it brings up all of that pain right back up to the surface. Or even just certain messages from your intuition around, this is something to look at. It comes in a more vague, foggy way because 12th house is the hidden house. And so with the Comet of pain and healing going into the 12th house, it gets a lot easier to snooze and to suppress. And that may sound like a great thing. Like, okay, planet of pain going into the hidden house. That means I don't have to deal with pain over this 8-year period. That's not exactly what I'm saying. And it's not always exactly a good thing to be able to suppress the pain or to hide the pain from ourselves, from others around. It's not convenient for me to have this surface. It's not convenient for me to feel uncomfortable with A, B, and C. So I'm just going to suppress suppress it. You know, sometimes when we push so much of that down, we put ourselves in environments that are deeply uncomfortable. Right? Taurus is around our comfort. And yes, we should strive to live a life outside of our comfort zone. You know, Uranus will be in your sign for the majority of the time that Chiron is in your 12th house. And Uranus is all around spontaneity and doing new things, which absolutely should be supported this time. But what I'm saying is, with Chiron and Taurus, we can subdue our comfort a little bit too much and sometimes just say, yeah, I'm comfortable doing A, B, and C, even if our intuition is saying, that doesn't feel good. But it's like, particularly if we are used to putting our comfort aside, putting our needs aside, it gets easier to snooze that inner voice around, yeah, I'll just go through with it, or yeah, I'll just do that for you. And really the only time that you might be able to get your attention to yourself, or your higher self can get your attention, is in times of meditation or in the dream world where things surface and you recognize what it is that you have been carrying, what it is that you've been suppressing, what it is that you've been putting up with that is against what you deserve or what you're worth. With Chiron going through the 12th house, meditation may be something that is very soothing. You might find an unusual sort of comfort being away from others, being in spaces that are more secluded. There's an interesting story with solitude when Chiron transits here, because you can feel alone when you're around people and then want to be around people when you're alone. Like sometimes there's an energy around, I'm not satisfied. No matter what I do, I don't feel satisfied. I don't feel satiated. I feel overwhelmed around people. So I go off on my own to hear myself think, but then I'm lost in my thoughts and I want to be around people again. There could just be a pain point around, when am I satisfied? And you can find, in order to recover, you are craving more time alone, like even taking little weekend trips or just doing things in order to connect to your soul and connect to your spirit, and investing in your soul, investing in your healing. You know, with Chiron in the 12th house, this can be a time around recognizing where your subconscious is wounded. And that's not to say that you are wounded, that something is wrong with you, but sometimes just recognizing, hey, this isn't a very loving way of treating myself. You know, and this is behind closed doors when we talk about 12th house. So it's like your own relationship to yourself. And furthermore, the lengths that we go to in order to avoid ourselves. Chiron in Taurus in the 12th house can absolutely indicate themes around seeking to numb our pain, whether it's with food, whether it's the deprivation of food, whether it's with substances. Give me something so I don't need to feel this. 12th house is very much around escapism. I don't want to handle the pain. I don't want to face the pain. I don't want to accept the pain. Just give me something in order to avoid it. And at this time, there also can be a pain around not validating your intuition. Trust your intuition. Trust when something feels uncomfortable. Trust when something doesn't feel right. Even if the information is coming via mysterious or nebulous means, it sucks to not validate your intuition. It sucks to know something's not good for you, but you've pushed away your intuition so much so that you just put up with it anyway. You know, sometimes we learn things the hard way where we knew from day one, this didn't feel good. This doesn't feel aligned, but like 12th house is very hidden. So it's like, well, there's nothing logically that would describe why. And then sometimes we get too woven into it and we get our feelings hurt, or we leave a certain situation feeling very traumatized. And it's like, I knew it. Why didn't I trust it? Taurus is around, you know, what feels good, what tastes good. And sometimes there's just a way our intuition speaks to us around, this feels aligned. It feels like a yum, or, oh, I don't know, something about this makes me uncomfortable. It feels like a yuck. And sometimes we don't value that. And this is a time to value that. And you may be healing your own relationship to your intuition, the value that you place within it. Even healing your relationship with God, I will say, or with spirit altogether. Sometimes we could be mad at the universe. We can feel alone at this time with Chiron transiting the 12th house. But ultimately, the energy of 12th house is self-undoing because, yes, it speaks to self-sabotage, but it's where self undoes into something so much bigger. So it's where we are held. We are secure in the bigger scheme of things. And sometimes with Chiron energy, we feel alone. We feel isolated. We're like, are you there, God? It's me, Haley. Like, I'm praying. I'm asking for relief. I'm asking you to take the pain away. And throughout the course of this transit, you can find that your connection with your higher power deepens, not because your pain was taken away, but because you see the gift within the pain. You see the wisdom within the pain, or you see the ways in which your higher power supported you out of the pain. There can be themes like this. Let Chiron in Taurus from 2026 to 2034 be your reminder that you are worth it. You are worthy. You are valuable. Chiron energy can just be this annoying little buzzing voice that is trying to convince you that you are not good enough, that you do not have enough, that you are not enough. And what's going to be really important is, rather than looking for external things to fill the void, recognize there is no void. You are already enough. You are born enough. There's nothing that you need to do in order to prove yourself, in order to validate yourself to the external world. Regardless of what Chiron and Taurus may throw your way, know how worthy you are just by being. And it has been such a pleasure to deliver your forecast to you. My name is Haley Comet. If this is your first time to my cosmic corner of the internet and you like it around here, I would so deeply appreciate a like, a subscription, turning on notifications, commenting, all of the little nudges. It just is so supportive for me and my channel. I have all sorts of content for you to check out. All signs forecasts, a weekly horoscope called Magic Monday that is available here on YouTube as well as on any podcast streaming app. My Instagram handle is at Haley Comet Astrology. My TikTok is the same. And I would love to know below or on any of my channels, what are you nervous about for this transit? What sort of healing potency are you looking forward to tapping into? I am all ears. Thank you for spending your valuable time with me today. And until we meet again, stay magical.